And you are watching another Blewett Blitz film review. He has that ability to, trust me, he definitely does. Just his ability to catch balls outside of his frame, his leaping ability, his ability to hang in the air, his yak ability, it's all there. Lowers his helmet, low man wins, bang, rocks a guy.
Hall running free, Brees Hall inside the 10, he's gonna score!
The corners all do their job. You know, if you look at the picture right here, lock.
3rd and 1. Stevens always drilled. What a great defensive play.
I don't try to Monday morning quarterback any of the reviews I do, and I'll try to be honest with a lot of the things I put up. And you are watching / listening to another edition of Blewett Blitz with my friend Kyle Smith, who's been on a hiatus, but kind of a planned hiatus with how it worked out, Kyle, because I wanted to do the 53-man roster predictions with you. But with all that being said, how are you?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, a little bit of a hiatus. Been busy, but not as busy as you, but doing good, man, and excited. Football's coming around. Actual football is really coming around. So let's see what we're about almost 2 weeks away. Right, from September 11th, not quite there, but less than 3 weeks. So yeah. I'm excited, man.
16, 17 days, something like that. Not good at math. It depends on if you count the day we're currently in, which I do because it's not over yet, but I'm always want to count the day you're in. But yeah, different location for me, if anybody's going to wonder that and be like, what the hell's wrong? That's why I don't have the light. It might not look as good, but working with the upstairs room turning into a nursery. So I'm moving everything downstairs. So this is my spot for a few weeks until we get the room all painted and done. But a lot to talk about tonight. Obviously, Kyle, we have the Buccaneers game. You're going to throw out some thoughts of just general other observations from preseason that you've seen. We have to talk about Hard Knocks. We have to talk about, Becton shit whipping everybody at right tackle. And we're all feeling, we're all on our high horse for a couple of days. And then we can't have anything nice. So CD retires. So we have that to talk about. We have 53-man roster predictions to do. So there's a lot to discuss in the next 2 or so hours. I don't want to get into the entire situation with Davis in terms of like what options we're going to talk about in a few minutes, Kyle. But with that being said, Eagle says best wishes from Corey as he retires, but the hole at wide receiver lingers with a loss. Funny to see Nani get ratioed on Twitter by Hardman today.
Really? I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Wait, why?
Yeah. By the way, I have like a tiny little bit of echo from you. I don't know if you could fix that, but so with the whole Hardman thing, I guess Nani just put out basically that like he felt like everybody was one spot too high in the depth chart or whatever it is. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he was just basically saying like he's not comfortable with the depth at wide receiver. And then Hardman said like some people think they know everything. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm not even gonna get involved. Like, because why are we gonna try to alienate players and make players hate us and stuff like that? Because I was thinking about putting a couple of drops up there and then maybe some factual statements about his contract that he got and that he's not still in Kansas City. But hey, we're gonna leave it alone at Jets X Factor because we're not trying to make enemies with the Jets. But yeah, Nani I guess he got bodied a little bit, and I just completely stayed away. So.
I mean, if that's all that Hardman said, that's not really him bodying Michael.
Yeah.
He's just getting defensive and really not providing any context. I mean, I don't know. But of course, if you're talking about likes and stuff, yeah, of course Hardman's going to have a bigger follower. And of course that he's going to have people in the Jets fan base rooting for him as opposed to rooting over Michael. But yeah, it's not like he responded to Michael with something that was like a good argument or something. By the way, are you still hearing the echo?
Yeah. No, we're good now. So
okay,
I don't know.
Cool.
I don't know if there's a little bit of feedback or whatever. But Meatball Parm, what is up, my friend? Eagle, and I'm gonna hit the chat and we're gonna go into the game. The Bucs game. We'll do it relatively quickly, but we still gotta talk about it, obviously, because it did happen. There's a film review out there that I put up about 2 hours, I think. But Eagle says, I love how the media treated Zach Wilson being a bust, which he is so far this or Eagle. Sometimes you don't read what you type and then you give me like an aneurysm trying to read it, but which he is so far at this point in his career, I guess he's trying to say, versus Trey Lance that can't even beat out a 7th round pick, Brock Purdy, and ex-massive Jets bust Sam Darnold, which Kyle, and maybe it's because we hear less 49ers news and we don't really pay attention as much to like 49ers stuff or like we only kind of absorb it in passing, but it is it does seem like the Niners get less criticism for their pick of Lance or their trade up. Like Eagle said, 3 first-round draft picks to get up there to get Lance. Now, is that because we just don't hear it because we're not San Fran fans? Or is it the fact that, hey, yeah, even though they busted on this pick, they're still in the conference championship game every year?
Okay, so let's talk about this for a moment. Lance barely even played. I mean, like at all, period. He didn't really play his rookie year because he was sitting behind Garoppolo. And then he tore his Achilles or something in his lower body. His second year didn't play at all. No, I don't think anyone was really calling him a bust at that point. People didn't really call him a bust until this year. I mean, people were certainly really skeptical of whether or not he was going to be good and if it was the right move to make. But people didn't, like, as opposed to Zach Wilson, who actually played last year, was actually put in a good spot and just continued to play horribly. So, I mean, it was fair for people to call Zach Wilson a bust last year versus holding off on Lance because Lance wasn't even playing last year. Now, it seems to me that people are calling Lance a bust this year. I saw Ted Wynn. He's a good football writer. He put something up on Twitter, like he quote tweeted something else. And there was a picture of the 49ers quarterbacks in the locker room. And Sam Darnold was the only one who was looking at like his tablet or whatever, like reviewing plays in like, I guess it was like halftime or whatever. And somebody was like using this to point out the fact that, oh, Lance isn't trying hard. He isn't working hard, blah, 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 blah. So, and Ted Wynn's like, oh my God, the 49ers quarterback discussion is horrible. So, I mean, it does seem like Lance is getting a fair amount of criticism this year. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't make sense that he would get as much in previous years because he wasn't playing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And again, the fact is like they can rely on being like, yeah, he busted, but we're also in the championship game with a 7th round pick or UDFA, or it was the last round pick, right? Or the last pick of the draft. So
yeah, Mr.
Yeah, but we'll move past it. It's not the biggest deal in the world. Rob D says, like Buffalo Jet fans' idea of Sutton or Renfro, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Sutton, Judy just went down with an injury. I don't know why they would trade Sutton at this point, especially to the Jets, who the Jets and the Broncos are clearly not very good friends. So I don't think Sutton. Renfro is a possibility that we'll mention in a little bit. Bonesy said, what's up, Bonesy? I heard a take today saying that he may have done this to save face because he's a cut candidate. I find that hard to believe, but and Kyle, I'll let you talk about this first, but I also find that very, very hard to believe that they're going to cut a guy 2 weeks before the season without really having a contingency plan. Because I don't think their plan is, Lazard at 2 and Hardman at 3 right now.
So Bonesy's referring to Corey Davis?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, if he was a guy who's going to get cut, at that point, don't you cut him earlier in the offseason and then offer a couple of more $1 million to, with Odell Beckham or whatever it may be? So I think it was a situation. I don't know exactly what happened with Corey Davis. I hope everything's well, obviously. Now it sucks for us as fans, but you never know what can happen. His kid could be sick. His wife could be sick. We have no idea what actually happened.
Yeah, we don't need to speculate on that. The point is the guy was the 5th overall pick. He's made a lot of money in his career. And dude, I mean, like, I'm just going to say this again. And we have no idea what's going on with him. And it's not any of our business, but football is an extremely violent game. Let's just take all a moment to appreciate that. And also, respect that for a moment. This is a guy who's been injured pretty much his entire career. He's missed games. He's had season-ending injuries where he's missed the vast majority of the season. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he's had any. Did he have a concussion last year? Or did he have one? The point is that football, taking all those hits to your head, and as someone who recently got like my brain scan, it's not good for your health at all. So if you've made over $52 million in your career, maybe it makes sense to hang it up. You don't know what he's going through. So
yeah. Now for the people, and I usually don't respond on Twitter. I responded a little bit last night and this morning just because like it really annoyed me how I don't know, like you have people who are talking shit about Corey Davis, and then those are the same people who are blowing up guys like Jason Brownlee and Malik Taylor, how good those guys are. But we've seen some stuff on Twitter. At least I've seen some stuff on Twitter where it's like, oh, he's option 4 or 5 at best. It doesn't really affect the Jets that much. Like, what are your thoughts on those comments? Because to me, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's really, really stupid. I know you kept saying wide receiver 2, and I tend to agree. Lazard's looked pretty good in some of the practices from what I've seen, and just the chemistry with him and Rodgers. Wouldn't be shocked if Corey Davis didn't retire and he did play out this season, that Lazard could have been number 2, although I'm not the hugest fan of Lazard for a variety of reasons, and we've talked about that on this show before. But I tend to agree with you that Corey Davis was definitely wide receiver 2 on this team.
Mm-hmm.
We did get a super chat from AP_14. What's up, boys? This Montrealer is officially going to the season opener. Baby. Oh, that's awesome. We'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be there. I think Ryan from Jets Talk, I think he's going to stop by the tailgate or actually just come. I don't know exactly what's happening, but we'll be there. So AP, if you need a spot to tailgate, let us know. And if you just want to stop by, also let us know. But that's awesome.
What time do you think you're getting there?
When the gates open at 3, right? So
is it 3? I don't know.
2:30. So I'll be there.
I don't know if I'll be there that early, but I'll be there as early
gates
as
opening.
I can.
Gates opening. I'll be in the line in the bus waiting. But yeah. AP, let us know. We obviously appreciate the super chat as well. But with Davis, like, okay, even if he is, I think the best argument you can have, or the most I'm willing to give, is to say, okay, he would be the 4th most targeted out of the receiving group, including the tight ends, because the only guys I could really see above CD would, if he was on the team, would be Wilson, would be Conklin, and would be Lazard, just because of the familiarity, and not because Lazard's actually a better player than Davis. But still, losing your number 4 target in your offense is a huge deal. And regardless of however people want to spin it, he's a starting receiver. Whether he's 2 or 3, he's not 4. For the people who think Hardman's better than Corey Davis, you're just. I said CD before. Oh yeah, CD. I was thinking like CD Lamb. I kind of tripped myself up there. But for the people saying that Hardman's going to get more targets than CD, like that's obviously just crazy. Just because you're watching highlights or something. But you're losing a guy who. How often do teams play? 11 personnel, Kyle. You're talking 50, 60% of the snaps, and then you're not even mentioning 10 personnel, or if they go completely empty, and then past that, like what I've been mentioning, it pushes everybody up one spot in the depth chart too high, in my opinion. Garrett Wilson, stud number 1, awesome. CD as a 2, not great, but with good depth behind him, I was comfortable with it. Now we don't have that. Now it's Lazard as a 2. Lazard as a 2, to me, he's more of a 3. I think he's a solid 3, but a bad 2. Hardman was a good 4 because he's a speed threat. He's a gadget guy. He can come in on certain plays, but you don't want Hardman taking 50, 60% of your reps because he's just too inconsistent of a player. And I brought that up before in terms of his connection with Rodgers. I don't think Rodgers is going to throw the ball a ton to McCall Hardman in situations where he needs to trust him to do something very specific. Hardman's just not the most disciplined player, in my opinion. Okay, so now he's a third. Cobb, I was cool with him as the 5. As the 4, okay, a little bit too high. And now you're talking about 1 injury, Kyle, and you're talking about Jason Brownlee, Malik Taylor, or somebody else at the receiver 4 spot. It's not enough for a team who's pushing for the Super Bowl, in my opinion, with $20 million in their pocket.
Yeah.
So
I'm totally with you, man.
We'll talk about some options later. And some people are like, oh, you need to replace CD with a big body. That's what I've been hearing all the entire day today, Kyle. Is big body. Oh, we need a big body. Big body. Big body. Then I ask people why. Why do you need a big body? And it's like, oh, because of jump balls. Oh, yeah, because Corey Davis won on a ton of jump balls, right, Kyle? Vertically, all the time.
I can't think of one jump ball, like over the shoulder on the vertical route that he won.
No.
On his time with the Jets. I mean, like he caught a long vertical touchdown against the Browns last year, but it's against a blown coverage.
Tennessee was the only one you think about, like vertical 40, 50-yard catch.
Okay,
down the sideline.
There you go. The Zach Wilson on point. There you go.
Yeah, but he was a guy who won over the middle, right? You're talking about dig routes. You're talking about over routes. You're talking about, it's not necessarily slants, but those type of routes, like more intermediate type of route running. And whether we're talking, and we'll let's mention it now. Davante Adams and Mike Evans are the dream, right? So whatever option I've been putting out there, whether it be Hollywood Brown, whether it be Hunter Renfrow, people comment, no, we want Davante. Yeah, because superstar, top 5, top 3 wide receivers get traded all the time, especially when you look at how freaking massive of a contract it is and how hard it is to trade. And then Evans, while much more realistic in terms of contractually and where the team is actually at, the Bucs have been pretty steadfast, at least from reports, that they don't want to trade Evans. They want Evans to be a buck for life type of guy, which, okay, I understand. So anybody else you post, Kyle, they're not good enough because we can get Davante Adams because you know why? This is Madden, and you can force a trade or whatever it may be. So I've been putting out some options. And the 2 most likely or the 2 most spoken about on Twitter right now are Hunter Renfrow from the Raiders, and then Hollywood Brown, as the Cardinals are currently having a fire sale on their team. So if you look at those 2 guys, and obviously they're a little bit different, and for their film study, I'll be able to tell exactly who they are. But they're both smaller guys, but and Hollywood Brown's more of a vertical guy, more of a yak guy than Renfrow, where Renfrow is more of like that typical Jamison Crowder type of slot receiver. But both guys can win over the middle. Does it matter how you win over the middle, Kyle? If you just win over the middle, like, do you have to have a big body to win over the middle, or could you create separation with your route running ability and their speeds in and out of breaks? So when people come to me and say, "Oh, we need a big body," you better be able to answer why. And if your answer is, "Oh, well, he's 6'3", okay, that doesn't mean fucking shit. Like, it doesn't mean anything. It's just about how you win, how you fit into the offense. So there's been some like legitimately very, very shallow and dumb arguments. And I don't know if it's a thing where like Jets fans are trying to cope or whatever it may be. And I'm not panicking. I still think they could be, a very good offense even without Davis. But let's not just push it aside and act like this guy was a scrub who was not going to get any targets. And, he was behind Cobb and Hardman and Uzama on the receiving type depth chart. So there's been a lot of wild takes the last 24 hours.
The discussion on Corey Davis historically with the Jets has always been pretty bad. It seemed like most fans kind of liked the signing. What they got him for was like $12.5 million average per year. And he was a player that seemed to be better than that salary, especially when you consider like he was the 5th overall pick in the draft. But, for whatever reason, like he never fully kind of stepped into what he could be. But I think it was mostly just due to injuries. And he probably was a little bit overdrafted anyway. It seemed like that entire draft was that 2017 draft was kind of like, Mitch Trubisky going 2 and Mahomes waiting to go to 10 and Watson going to 12 and Jets taking Jamal Adams at 6 over some of those quarterbacks when they needed a quarterback. A lot of people seem to kind of, get that draft wrong, just off the top of my head. But I don't know, man. Corey Davis, I agree with you that they don't necessarily need to replace it with a bigger body. Corey Davis, he boxes guys out over the middle and stuff, but Lazard is still a huge wide receiver, and the Jets have 2 tight ends, possibly 3, that any of them could get a decent amount of targets this year too. So I expect them to run a decent amount of 12 personnel this year. So this idea that you necessarily need a big body, I think is kind of a stupid one. I don't know how much you want to talk about some of those names that you mentioned right now. No. But we did get some super chats. So
I was gonna pull up this one, which is like the argument I've seen on Twitter, Kyle. CD was a bum. Okay. If
you want to factor in that old adage, the best ability is availability.
Yeah.
Corey Davis wasn't always available. Mm-hmm. So if that's why you're going to call him a bum, I get it. But when the guy was on the field, he was a solid player.
Yeah, and if you legit, and it, again, it doesn't take much deep thinking to do this. Look at just for the people who like stats out there, because that's all people look at now is stats. Look at his stats compared to Lazard's stats, compared to Hardman's stats, and then factor in Davis has been getting the ball thrown in by Ryan Tannehill, Zach Wilson, Mike White, while you have Hardman and Lazard, who have produced much less than Corey Davis in his career, have been throwing the ball by 2 Hall of Famers and 2 of the best or top 5, top 10 quarterbacks of all time. So fine, you could say CD is a bum, IGCFC or SR, and we appreciate the super chat, I do. But with that being said, then you automatically think Lazard's a bum, you think Hardman's a bum, you think Cobb is a bum, you think Brownlee's a bum, you think Taylor's a bum, you think Uzama's a bum, you think Ruckert's a bum because he hasn't done anything. You think a lot of guys are bums, so we need something. So regardless of you, how exactly you quantify what Corey Davis is as a player, the film is out there. It's out there. I've done reviews on all of those guys, and he is easily a better player than Lazard and Hardman. You'll see with Hardman. You'll see. But so this is what I've been getting. CD was a bum. Who cares? Okay. We'll see. We'll see when Jason Brownlee's out there running routes terribly. if you miss CD. So,
I don't think Joe Douglas is going to let that happen.
Yeah.
The Jets are so all in this year. I mean, just signing a guy like Dalvin Cooks just proves how all in they are. Mm-hmm. They're not going to, let Corey Davis, who was a big signing a couple of years ago, let him retire. And then, we're just going to run with some young UDFA instead. That's not happening.
Yeah. So we'll bring up the options now, Kyle. How do they replace him? We're already pretty much balls deep into this conversation. We lost CD. Again, Kyle, you could take the argument of people on Twitter and whoever else in the chat who's just going to say, go get Devontae Adams or Evans because that's so easy. If you can take that, go ahead. If not, let's have a real conversation about realistic things. Hunter Renfrow, Hollywood Brown. Now, obviously, with that being said, we have to do a lot more research into both of those guys, right? Like, I don't know the exact injuries. I don't know exactly what's happening. I know like somewhat of what their contracts are. They're both 27, 28 years old. Renfro's been battling, he battled injuries last year. I think he's still battling some now. And then Hollywood Brown was, a 1,000-yard receiver, a year ago. Renfro was a 1,000-yard receiver a year ago, but you bring him up to people on Twitter, and because he's not Tyreek Hill, they suck. Like, you know how it is, Kyle. You're either really, really good or you're really, really bad. There's no in between. Renfro and Hollywood Brown are decent level starting receivers. The Jets right now have, to me, 3 starters. There's 3 starters at receiver. You have 1 stud. You have 1 who's an okay 3. You need a starting level receiver. And those guys, if healthy and assuming, that everything I've seen in passing is actually what they are as players, then they're decent level receivers. So, like, yeah, we'd all like to fill them with fucking Jerry Rice, but that shit doesn't happen. So let's be realistic here. If they brought in Hollywood Brown and he got us 700-800 yards like Corey Davis would, then it's a good move, or same thing for Hunter Renfrow or what other options you have, Kyle. But again, I feel like I'm being a little bit, mean to start this one, but it's been frustrating me all day. So with that being said,
you're honest, and we appreciate that stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking about those 2 names that you just mentioned, I think the important thing to say is they're both good football players. Like Hollywood Brown was a 1st-round draft pick, despite the fact that he is really, really, really small. But he had a really productive career at Oklahoma. And he had a good career with Baltimore. Lamar Jackson was very sad when they traded him away. He gets traded to Arizona for a 1st-round pick, and he does well in Arizona despite not having the best coaching and quarterback play over there. He had an unfortunate injury last year, but the guy he does make big plays consistently in the NFL. Again, despite like being really, really, really tiny. I mean, just go look at his measurables. Like he's like, it's like really, really like bottom percentile, but he's a good football player. And, some Jets fans might be thinking like, oh, well, he's mostly like a deep threat of speed type of guy. Why do we need that? We got Hardman. It's like, I mean, just think about some of Hardman's biggest plays in his career. I mean, like you might think like, oh, Hardman, he's got that 4.3 speed. He's beating guys deep over the top. And it's not really the case. Hardman's kind of more of a guy who, if you can get him the ball in his hands and give him a little bit of space to work with, he can be a pretty good yak guy. He runs decently hard and stuff for his size, but this is not like a guy who's, Hardman. I mean, has he had more deep ball wins over his career than Robbie Anderson did early in Robbie Anderson's career? No. So like Hollywood Brown is like a legit deep ball threat, and I wouldn't call Hardman that, despite the fact that he is fast.
We have to be fair that McCole Hardman wasn't working with the best situation in Kansas City there, right, Kyle?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Renfro, again, like this is a guy who he was a really late draft pick, if I'm not mistaken, but he had a very productive career at Clemson. And, he didn't let his late round draft status really affect the kind of player he was. So he's a good football player too. Just trying to envision the role. Like I kind of see like the situations that they would want to use him in would be similar to, I feel how that they would want to use Randall Cobb in. And that Randall Cobb is Aaron Rodgers' boy. So off on the face of it, that one seems to make a little bit less sense to me. And I know that, based on some of your tweets that I saw, you seem to be more in favor of Hollywood Brown, as am I. Was it an ACL injury last year for Hollywood?
That's what I said. I don't know about the injuries with both guys. I don't know exactly what they were. It's to me, I look at them again. This isn't passing. I could be 1,000% wrong. I'll be completely transparent with that. To me, Hollywood is more of like a yak and vertical guy, where again, Hunter is more of that Jamison Crowder, route runner over the middle. Doesn't have much deep speed, but it's very, very quick in and out of his breaks. Tough guy, will take shots from linebacker. So they're a little bit different. So I could see them liking both, but one may legitimately fit their offense better. So we'll see what happens. It's just, to me again, they don't have enough. They don't have enough, and we'll talk about like roster questions, and we'll do the whole 53. Love the defense. And I'm okay with going into the season, like with both sides of the ball. I'm okay with going in with like one question mark, right? Like we have kind of like a pseudo question mark at linebacker, okay, pseudo question mark at free safety, but overall we're pretty comfortable. On the offense, now this is not preferred, obviously, but I'm okay with going in with a question mark. Like, the whole Becton thing. If they don't bring in a tackle, That's not my preferred option, but I would be able to live with it if we had a CD and we didn't really have any other questions on the offense. But now going into what is realistically a year where the Jets are obviously shooting for the Super Bowl, I don't want to go into the season with two big question marks on offense. One of them being, can Hardman play like a receiver 3? And can can Lazard play like a receiver 2? In my opinion, they've already proven that they can't. Again, it's been multiple years of proof of that. And then on the offensive line as well, you have a problem at tackle. So I would like to just minimize at least one of those problems. And I saw that the Cardinals traded Josh Jones, who a lot of Jets fans were talking about as
they made 3 trades today.
Yeah, Isaiah Simmons, Josh Jones, and who was the other?
Dobbs, the quarterback.
Oh, yeah. So with Jones now, maybe it's a thing where he, they did him a favor, and maybe he went to the Texans, and he's going to start with the Texans, but they have Tunsil and what's his face though. So I actually don't know if he's starting. But my thinking would be maybe he didn't want to come to the Jets because he knew he wouldn't start here. But I'd be curious to see the price and if the Jets offered anything for Jones, because at this point, again, Becton dominated. The video I put up, he and Kyle, we'll speak to it in a little bit about the Bucs game. He dominated. That's pretty much as good as you could play. So I was really, really thrilled with Becton. With that being said, even though he had a good game, everything's going very, very positively right now, and not to drag us down here. But with that being said, with all the positivity, Kyle, if you had to put the over under on how many games he plays this year, what are you putting it at?
Oh, we're talking about for Mekhi Becton or who?
For Becton, I'll continue after you give me your answer.
Becton over under 14 games is the number, and I won't take the over.
Okay, yeah. And 14 games, I think, is pretty high, based on the last couple of years. The real over-under would probably be 10, 11, whatever. And let's even say it is 14. Depending on what games those are that he misses, you're going to have at one point, whether it be Max Mitchell or Billy Turner at right tackle, with an injury at receiver, and 10 personnel, and it's going to be Wilson, McCole Hardman, Cobb, and Brownlee. Is that inspiring confidence in trying to go to the Super Bowl? Again, not trying to be a downer here, but not to me. So we got to fix some shit on offense at this point. I know, it's hard knocks and one Jets drive, and it's all sunshine and rainbows right now. But it's not sunshine and rainbows when you might have Max Mitchell or Billy Turner playing significant.
And by the way, Max Mitchell has been god awful this preseason.
He's been terrible. He's been dreadful. He's been absolutely dreadful. So that's not been a good development. And this is what we tried to say last year, Kyle. It's fucking wild that this happened. We told people he was decent for relative expectations, but he was still bad.
You said that line, I don't know how many dozens of times.
Because he was still bad, right? And now he's bad. Holy shit. It's so wild. It's so wild that happened. And it's always funny too, just to go a little bit here.
Joe, he got a 90-something PFF grade coming out of college.
Yeah, so did Lawrence Cadrix. He caught a wide open slider route versus the Giants in preseason. He fucking ran for 20 yards. Who gives a fuck about PFF? So then past that, what the fuck? I don't know what I was saying before.
You're saying that it's not all sunshine and rainbows when you got Max Mitchell or Billy Turner having to start for you.
Yeah. No, I just, at a certain point in the year, Max Mitchell at right tackle and Jason Brownlee taking reps is just not inspiring so much confidence. And it's not to be doom or gloom. I think the Jets are sitting there right now with $20 million in their pocket. You got to do something. You have to do something at this point if you're really going for it. And it's just emphasized by the fact that the AFC is so goddamn strong right now. You got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase running out there, and we may be running McCole Hardman out there for legitimate reps if Lazard goes down. And Lazard, not saying he's not been Corey Davis in terms of his health, but he's missed a game or 2 or 3 every single year at this point. So what happens if he goes down?
We're not talking about Larry Fitzgerald out there.
Yeah. So I need something to be done with the offense, especially at receiver at this point. And would you label, let's say only one move could be done, Kyle? Would you make a move at tackle or would you make a move at receiver? I know it's kind of a hard question to answer, but
it seems like you'd have better options at acquiring a legit receiver as opposed to a tackle. So I would go with, and the thing is while I would like better backup at tackle, I want Becton to play this year because that Bucs game shows what he can be. It's kind of more of a continuation of some of the good things that we saw. And there was a lot of good things in his rookie film.
Yeah.
When we drafted that guy 11th overall, we knew the talent was through the roof. It was just a matter of him working out some things. So I want to see him play this year. So I'm not don't get me wrong. I would love to, if the Jets had made a trade and got Josh Jones, who I don't know much about, if they got him for a 5th or 6th round pick, I would have been like, okay, cool. More depth at tackle. A guy who seems to be kind of promising. He's got some talent to work with. I would have liked that. But, acquiring a bigger name receiver, especially being that Corey Davis is like legit 100% off the team, playing 0 snaps this year, that seems to be the thing that I care about more.
Yeah, it's not doom and gloom. It's just if you look at the picture of the AFC and people are like, oh, well, look what the Chiefs have. They don't really have receivers. Okay, cool. We also don't have Travis Kelce. We also don't have Patrick Mahomes, and we also don't have Andy Reid. So how do you equate for that? So again, not to be doom and gloom, but it's a big blow. So when people minimize it on Twitter, it drives me crazy because the depth is not there. It's the one is slotted correctly, and every other guy on the team is one spot too high. It was perfect yesterday. 2 days ago, okay, I'm completely cool with it. I thought they could use an upgrade at receiver, get rid of Davis early in the offseason. We talked a lot about whether it be Odell or I at least preferred Hopkins to Odell. I would have loved to make that move, especially now. But
by the way, and it seems like Hopkins is having a good training camp, man. I consistently see I guess that's PFF putting out clips of him just beasting guys in practice, one-handed catches and things like that. It's like, he still got it.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. We have 16, 17 days before the season. Again, I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but it's not about, and I think a lot of people, I don't want to say struggle, but we kind of compare this team to former Jets teams. And it's like, yeah, they're a lot better. A lot of teams are a lot better than what we've seen in the last 10 years. But we're not talking about just being better. We're talking about trying to win the fucking Super Bowl, right? Kind of like that. That's the goal. So yes, we could still be good. Are we beating, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in Arrowhead, or or in Cincinnati against Joe Burrow?
Hey, if Chris Jones doesn't play this year, that's a huge loss for them.
Hey, stay out the first 8. We said 8 games, right? I'll set out the first 8 games. All right, hey, if I want to stay out the 8,
that means he won't be taking a trip to MetLife Stadium Sunday Night Football.
Exactly. So Hollywood seems to fit the philosophy. Speed. And somebody said that he's like a little bit of a Bonesy said he's Hollywood. Have you heard anything about like his temperament and stuff? I don't know if I've really.
Well, I think that's part of the reason he has that nickname.
Okay.
I mean, listen, a lot of receivers are divas, so I wouldn't be shocked. I don't know too much about the guy's temperament, truthfully.
Yeah,
I just know that I've seen, despite the fact that I didn't really evaluate him coming out of college, or because I'm just kind of one of these guys who doesn't do the whole draft, but just kind of realistic options for the Jets. And
sure.
Just watching, football casually over the years, he's a guy who consistently pops up on highlight reels of winning on deep contested catches and things like that. So,
what are your thoughts? This is not a legitimate option I haven't even thought about, Kyle. But what are your thoughts about bringing back Denzel Mims?
Not at all shocked that he got waived.
So again, Kyle.
And by the way, did we talk about his comments the last time I was on here when some Lions media was interviewing him and I couldn't tell you what I did wrong there. I did everything I possibly could. It's like, yeah, man, no self-reflection, no accountability. I could see why the coaches didn't like him.
Maybe it's just the Jets and the Lions. We have no idea what we're doing. Then he's going to go to the Cardinals. They're going to cut him, and another team they're going to cut him. Like it just, this is why it's so hard to evaluate players, because Mims was dominant at Baylor, and even in his first year against the Chargers, against the Pats, against the Dolphins, like he was playing well. But it's impossible for us to get into the guy's mental. And clearly, as soon as other guys were brought in, he folded. So. Don't give me the food poisoning bullshit because he ate salmon. It didn't affect him for fucking 2 years. So I'm sorry. But it's, maybe Mims can come back. Doubt it happens, but any Morgan Moses caliber wide receiver in danger of being cut next week. I don't think anybody who would want to legitimately start, right? Rivka before, which was up Rivka, they brought in, or she mentioned Josh Palmer from the Chargers that he's wide receiver 4. But with that being said, 1, I don't know really much of anything about Josh Palmer.
I don't either.
2, why would the Chargers, who are going for it, going to give a good depth receiver away who seems I think is on a pretty controllable contract? I just don't see us getting a guy. From
they need to win. Their coach is on the hot seat, so
they're not trading to listen. If they were trading to whoever the Texans or something like that, like somebody who's not going to legitimately compete, okay, I would understand the AFC, but they're not going to trade it to a team they may be fighting for a wild card spot with in January, right? So wouldn't make a lot of sense to me. What's up, Mike? What's up, Sneakers and Boots? I apologize for being so negative to start it, but F it. What's up? What's Jordan Nelson up to these days? They need somebody. They
He
need
probably
something.
still play better than Mims.
And it's not even so much Lazard, because like Lazard, I think is like okay. He's okay. He's gonna frustrate the hell out of you, but he's okay, which is fine. It's Hardman. I can't see Hardman playing 50-60% of the Jets snaps. I don't like his game enough. And regardless of what you want to talk about, his speed and all this stuff, and Chiefs fans love him, his contract reflected his play. $5-6 million, whatever it is. Why you have guys out there like Lazard getting $11 million, like Zay Jones getting $10-11 million. Like he is a wide receiver 4 gadget guy. Like he's not paid to be a starter. That's not what his contract reflects. And clearly the rest of the NFL didn't offer him any more than we did. Well, no, potentially they did, but nobody offered him starting level receiver money. Clearly, he's a depth guy. He's a vertical threat because of the speed. He's a gadget guy, but him as your 3 is not a good situation. It's just not. What's up, Eagle? What's up, Mike? Planting my trade Dean flag now. Better make the 53 as a safety linebacker hybrid. Kyle, that was the guy, and we'll get into we're kind of going to talk about the Bucs game just naturally. But that's a guy, obviously, you've been watching the reviews and you're watching the games as well. So you've seen with your own eyes, then obviously broken down as well. Dean, to me, he should be safety 4. His game last week against the Bucs was very, very impressive. I know Davis had a few nice tackles, but Dean was much better, in my opinion. Now, the only thing that I would have to think about in terms of, okay, maybe they don't carry him because of these reasons. 1, special teams, him versus Davis. I know Davis is a good special teamer. And then 2, if you have Dean, you have Amos, you have Whitehead, who is your backup, like free safety if Adam struggles or goes down. So do you have too many box players with Dean on the team? But dude, Dean, like just go to my Twitter, JoerB31, and type in Dean. Like the guy made plays last week. So what do you think about Dean, his chances, and I guess his overall preseason?
Yeah, well, we're gonna do our 53-man roster towards the latter part of the show, but let's just say that I think he's got a good chance of making the roster. And it seems crazy to say it, but because again, he is going against a lot of backups. Mm-hmm. But in terms of from what I saw last year, when you want to talk about a safety coming from on high down and filling and stuffing the run, he looked more impressive than what I saw from Whitehead last year. And again, Whitehead's going against Ramondre Stevenson, who is a legit dude out there versus, whatever backup running back. So obviously it's a little bit easier, but he did look better and, certainly better than like how bad was Joyner at doing that. So there's some promising things there. As a coverage guy, there's a little bit of work to be done. There was that kind of one
hold.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what kind of route it was.
It was a corner.
Yeah, it was like a corner, but like the receiver broke in first and then out. It wasn't the best coverage in the world.
A stem corner.
Yeah. So, I mean, you don't want him like, in like a free safety type role. You don't ever want him in the position where he's the single high safety, but, as a guy who can fill and play in that hybrid role, kind of maybe that Chuck Clark-ish type of role, he could maybe do something well. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, this is watching like not passively, but you know what it is, Kyle. Like you can't watch every single player on every single play. You kind of look for who stands out, and maybe if you want to target a guy. But to me, past that play where he got the holding and he got beat on that corner route or the stem corner, or circus, whatever the hell people want to call it, he hasn't stood out to me in a bad way in coverage. Like I haven't noticed him like, oh shit, that's a really bad play. Minus that one play. So.
Wasn't a blown coverage, and a lot of times in preseason with like an inexperienced safety type of thing, you'll see a lot of blown coverages. Like we had Brontez Miles literally making the team since his rookie year as a UDFA, and the guy, while he was a good special teams player, even like his 3rd, 4th, 5th year in the league, he was a total liability in coverage. Just didn't understand where he needed to be, and he blew several coverages, big time plays.
Philip says, excited to see your 53-man roster. Really curious who we keep at depth. So like my only problem with the 53-man roster is like there's 2 thoughts. Do you do what you would do, or do you do what the Jets would do? And I try to meet somewhere in the middle because like there's parts of me hearing how, and we'll obviously get into this later, Kyle, but there's parts of me hearing how Saleh talks about the 3 quarterback rule makes me think he might keep Boyle, which I would hate. But the Jets might legitimately do that and just screw up everybody's 53-man roster predictions because just the way I keep asking a question about it. I forget exactly how we responded, but I was like, damn, dude, they might keep Boyle, which again, I would not love, but
I'm telling you right now, if they keep Boyle, the only reason they keep Boyle is not any endorsement of Boyle at all.
you think it's Zach?
It's not that they would cut Zach, but just because how many times last year did Robert Saleh give him a day? Oh, we're going to give him the week off. He needs a reset. Like, it's just because you're absolutely scared shitless that you have to play Zach this week because you're scared that, he's going to, lose his mind and toss 4 interceptions and, he's run out of bounds and then decide to heave up into triple coverage, a stupid pass. And you don't want to do that. So you'd rather have Boyle, who, is not going to do something dumb like that. That would be the only reason to keep him because it's nothing impressive that he did at all.
No, so there's only 2 reasons I can really see them keeping him. One, he's Rodgers' boy, right? And we had some Jets obviously were brought in to because they were Rodgers' boy. I think Lazard deserves a roster spot on any roster. I think Cobb deserves a roster spot on any roster. Could I say the same for Billy Turner? I'm not so sure. And then obviously Boyle is good friends with Rodgers as well. I'm not going to mention what I mentioned in the actual film show, Kyle, or like the little sidebar about Boyle and how I think is. I'm not even going to mention that because I'm going to bring up a whole can of worms. But go watch the film show. I don't know. I have some thoughts about Boyle. And then sorry. Okay, so sorry. So it was Boyle because he's Rodgers' friend, and then 2, it may be because with Zach Wilson, like on the sideline watching Rodgers, they want a guy to kind of coach him up who's been there, and is Boyle the right guy to necessarily coach up somebody? Maybe not, but do they feel like he can help Zach's development? If he's hanging around Boyle while Rodgers is doing his thing, and Boyle can explain, okay, this is why he's doing this. This is what he likes. This is whatever. Maybe.
That's a stupid reason to keep a person on a roster.
That's dumb. I like it, Kyle.
Listen, in a year like this, when Saleh literally said today something along the lines of, well, we're going to be cutting some good players this year. And that hints at the fact that, our roster is improved. Okay. Well, if that's the case, then, you're going to be cutting potentially a good player to have a backup quarterback who you hope never sees the field. And if he does see the field, he's going to be bad. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me to coach up for one of the reasons to coach up the guy who you hope also doesn't ever have to step on the field in Zach Wilson. I don't like that.
Jets Lounge, Jeremy.
And this whole thing too, I must say this too. I want to get on the Jets Lounge.
Go ahead.
This whole thing that Rodgers said, it's the right thing for him to say. I hope I play a couple good years here and then I hand it off to Zach for the next 15. That's not happening. Guys, get that out of your head right now. Rodgers might do 2 to 3. We hope it's 3. I mean, if Rodgers does 2, the Jets cannot pick up Zach Wilson's 5th-year option. They can't.
No, do you think it's a thing where maybe he takes a friendly deal for a year to stick around because he thinks this may be the best shot for him to succeed, under Rodgers? Like, do you think that's a possibility? Because obviously they're not.
If you're the Jets, why would you even want to take him on a friendly deal? You're assuming that you'll still have a pretty good roster at that point too. Why would you want to bank it on a guy who, whenever you put him out there, he's been really, really, really bad, as opposed to either drafting another guy or signing another guy or whatever?
And while I do doubt it, I could see a situation where they give him a lesser contract because they don't have the answer at quarterback, right? So it's not like, oh, well, now we're going to have somebody else step in, number 1 or 2 or 3 pick, whatever it may be. You don't know where the Jets are going to be in the draft. So do you keep Zach Wilson for a friendly contract that also pays him well enough to stay here, while also drafting another guy and then letting them compete it out for a spot? Like, I can see it happening.
I think the only way that really happens is Zach Wilson is going to have to grow by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
And based off what we've seen in this preseason, you even said it in your last film review that you did. You've seen improvement, but let's not act like it's minimal. It's minimal improvement. He should be improved. You're hopefully it's a better offensive coordinator. It's another year being in the NFL. He is learning from Rodgers. I see all these people say, the Rodgers effect is real. Look at Zach Wilson, the way he's booting out and throwing the way that Rodgers does. It's like, Zach always tried to do stuff like that. It's one of the reasons he is very talented and they drafted him and stuff. But, still, like, his ability to click through progressions, like you showed a couple plays where there was one play where he bootlegged out towards the left and he could have hit a guy for 6-7 yards. Instead, he decides to keep the ball and he runs and basically gains nothing and takes a hit on the play.
He almost threw that near pick too. I don't know if that ball was tipped to the right though. That was a really bad throw. If
The
it wasn't
footwork is
tipped,
still really bad too.
yeah, the footwork is terrible. So listen, Zach Wilson's been improving. Okay, that's the first part of the statement. Has Zach Wilson proven to enough to me in 3 preseason games where I'm like, okay, I'm cool with him as a backup? Absolutely not. I still think it's a mistake that I have a better backup than Zach Wilson, while also acknowledging that yes, he's improved. But Kyle, he was not even backup level player last year. Like you had Flacco playing over him. Like he was not a backup. He was not one of the best 64 quarterbacks in the league last year. He was not, regardless of how you want to spin it.
A journeyman 5th round pick with very little athleticism comes in and outplays him by a good deal too. Like,
yeah. So
you think with Mike White at the helm, the Jets might have a shot at the playoffs, but with Zach Wilson, you're thinking like, yeah, we don't have a shot at the playoffs.
While acknowledging that he's improved, did he go from the 80th best quarterback to the 50th best quarterback? I don't think so. Not yet. So we'll see. And
the point is the only way you could even give him that short-term contract, if he was even willing to take it, and that some and one other of the 31 other teams wouldn't be willing to give him more. The only way you could do that is you would have to see in practice on a daily basis just magnificent things. And in the film room, he's just blowing you away with his ability to recall information and how quick he's going to get to his hot read and things like that. And it's like, as a guy who's not going to be taking the majority of the reps, I don't think that you're really going to get the opportunity to even see that. And I don't think that he has that ability anyway. So it's not happening.
I don't know. I didn't even get the Jets line basically asks if it's ridiculous, like the notion of going after Hollywood Brown is ridiculous. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. He's coming off a big injury, and they're literally, they just traded a 1st round pick in Simmons from a couple of years ago for a 7th round pick. So
yeah, they're tanking now. How has the injury affected him? I don't know. Is he slower? How do the medicals look? That's like stuff we don't obviously know. But I don't think it's ridiculous at all. I think it's actually at least somewhat realistic that happens because they're trying to suck. Clearly, they're trying to suck. So
and here's the other thing you got to consider too. Kyler Murray is a huge reason why Hollywood Brown, being that they're both Oklahoma products, is in Arizona. But the thing is if the Cardinals organization really does have this plan to tank, which it seems like they might actually, and it's not crazy to think that an organization would want to tank when you have potentially 2 really good quarterbacks at the top of the draft. If you do get the number 1 overall pick, Arizona, you're not going to keep Kyler Murray. You're going to take one of those guys. So
yeah, exactly.
At that point, who cares about the connection to Hollywood Brown?
And I know the contract, so I'm sure Rivka will tell me this because I'll probably be wrong. So if you want to scan the bottom of the check, she'll probably put it in there. But I think Renfro and Hollywood Brown, they're both owed like $13-ish million this year. But I know one of them is only like 9 this year, and I think Hunter Renfro is 9 this year and like 13 the year after that, while Hollywood is only like 1 year, 13 million. I could be wrong, but they're both relatively absorbable contracts. They're somewhat near what Corey Davis was. So yeah, $1 million or $2 million off or whatever it may be, but you're basically just replacing them 1-for-1 with Corey Davis in terms of what their salaries are. So I think it would be a fine move for either one, obviously. Now, if I watch both, I would probably have a bigger preference for one or the other. To me, right now, sitting right here at this very moment with no background, I prefer Hollywood. But again, I could watch Renfro and be like, oh yeah, I really love him.
What do you think about what Rusty says? I hope we go for Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, but what is that going to take, dude? Like he's fucking.
But the Rams are definitely in rebuild mode too. So he seems to be.
How old is he?
He's got to be around 30. I think he's one of these guys who came into the league when he was 30. A little bit older.
30. So okay, and hold on, Cooper Kupp contract. So like this is. Now, I think this is much more. We'll see about the contract. Rivka says today, "No, you're an idiot. You can't trade it." And then I'll defer to her because I suck with contracts. But so if
Rivka, tell us.
Hold on, no, Kyle. So let me say this: 2023, 2024. If they get rid of him or at least cut him, they owe him $64 million. In 2024, if they cut him, there's $47 million of dead money. So I don't think so. I would love it, but sure, I don't think they're going to eat $64 million to trade him. So that's pretty much dead and I would love it though if they can figure out, I don't know, Cooper Kupp, they trade him, then he reworks his contract, tears it up, and says, you guys don't owe me anything. I don't know, probably not going to happen. But Philip Cross says cooled on the Sam slander. Always loved Darnold. Think he could have done okay if we had a good team and coach. I don't actually disagree with you, Philip. I don't think Kyle does either. Sam was not put in a good situation from the head coach, obviously with Gase and with the last year of Bulls. And then past that, he had no talent. Like you're talking about throwing to Andre Roberts and Chad Hansen, or it was a Chad Hansen or David Nelson or whatever scrubs we were working with that year. I think in a good situation he could have done something, but unfortunately we flubbed them up. So
yeah, he could have. But the thing is some guys come in and they're working with even less, and they still rise above the occasion. But I do think he's still a little overrated. But listen, he definitely played better than Zach Wilson. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, for sure. He did.
Especially considering the situation.
Is this the last year of Hollywood's deal? I believe. Yeah, I'm 95% sure it is the Rob date, but I'll Google in a second.
It's the 5th-year option, I think.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. Honestly, ridiculous. I think CD was wide receiver 2. Yeah. Ryan equals Jets talk 24/7. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's something that's something that slipped my mind before. The one thing they're undoubtedly going to miss, Kyle, is the blocking. Right, outside zone system, a lot of crack toss.
Better blocker than Lazard too. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah, no, he is 100%. So they're going to miss his blocking. That's the thing that I don't think they're going to replicate. Now, I think Hollywood Brown or Renfro can come in. They can get 700-800 yards. They can do what I think Corey Davis is going to do this year in the passing game. Running game, they're not going to replace him. That's the big blow that I don't think a lot of people think about, but it's legitimate. Like that's tangible. That you're going to feel his lack of presence.
Another reason why the people saying, "Oh, he was a cut candidate," that was not going to happen too.
Yeah,
one of the big reasons is
the
Jets do want to run the ball. Think about some of Hackett's comments, I think, on the last Hard Knocks and stuff. Oh, a good running game is a quarterback's best friend. Jets want to run the ball this year. Think about how the running back room looks, right? You have Breece Hall, who legitimately looks like he could be a top 5 running back, and then you still go out and sign veteran Dalvin Cook. Mm-hmm. You keep drafting running backs. They're going to run the ball a lot.
Yeah. Jets Lounge again says Brown would make a crazy combo with Hardman. The speed would be good. Like there's going to be plenty of misdirection, plenty. They can run guys off vertical.
He's the gas to the all gas, no brakes. Just like what Salah said about Hardman.
Let's see. All of a sudden, Corey Davis is a major part of this offense.
I keep seeing people say Sammy Watkins. Can we please stop with that? Sammy Watkins, I watched a lot of his tape last year because he was with Rodgers. He was bad. He's over the hill. And this is another guy who's banged up constantly. I have zero interest in Sammy Watkins.
Quick dolo. We're not saying that he was a major part of this offense. He was a starting receiver, and a starting receiver is a part of the offense. No, he's not going to get targeted as much as Garrett Wilson. He's not going to see as many touches as Breece Hall or Dalvin Cook or Tyler Conklin, but he was still a starter on your team. Losing a starter sucks. Now, was every single play going to be designed to go to Corey Davis? No, but he's a starter. Like, why are we trying to minimize it? Is it like I don't know what we're doing here. Yeah, you lose your third receiver at worst. It's a big deal, right? Like I don't get it. It is what it is.
Prior to Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis was easily one of the best Jets receivers since Decker and Marshall, 2015, 2016. I mean, come on, easily, like leaps and bounds better than some of those other guys we had.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna say F Corey Davis here because like the thing about it is yes. There's a fan in me like, fuck, dude, like really, like 2 weeks, like you couldn't have told me, we couldn't have told him in May or June.
Probably really wanted to no Do you think he was easy to walk away from $10.5 million?
Yeah, you have no idea. Like, and I'm not going to put the name up here, but like, listen, if it comes out and I'm talking about like worst case scenarios here, and I don't want to speculate, but his wife is sick, like legitimately sick, or his kid is sick. And then you're putting like, fuck him, why is he waiting 2 weeks? You're going to regret that. You never know. If my wife got sick or, the baby we're going to have in a couple months got sick, you think I'm fucking live streaming all that shit? Probably not. Like I'm done, so I get it. Now, we don't know exactly what it was, but I would chill with why did he quit? Because if it's a legitimate reason, then it's understandable. If it's a thing where it's like, I just don't feel like playing football anymore. Okay, then that could be a problem. But Corey Davis was mid. Jesus, fix it. It's a mid-level starter.
I don't mind saying he's mid. I don't mind saying
Maybe
he's
it's
mid,
hard.
but the thing is Brownlee and Taylor, they're nowhere close to mid.
No, they're not rosterable, really. Like, right? Okay.
Keenan Allen, they're not trading him, man. They need to win. They need to win now as well.
I think that was a joke. Like, while we're at it, getting Devontae Adams and Mike Evans.
Because I think I saw another Keenan comment somewhere in the chat. So
this isn't a bad name, Chris. Like this is somewhat realistic. Now, obviously, I would prefer Brown or Renfro, but like a Van Jefferson. I don't know what he's done in recent years, but he was at least like an okay 3 or 4 for the Rams for a couple of years. So I'd look more into it. But
much.
Oh yeah, like what do you? Can you look up what he did last? Obviously, we're just going by stats here, Kyle. But can you tell me what he's been doing recently? But I think it's like a realistic. That's somewhat realistic. If they're talking about adding a 4 or 5, all right. Is negative Joe added again? I don't know. I guess I am negative.
He did have 802 yards last year and 6 touchdowns. So
okay, I'm talking.
Okay,
like that's
better than solid, I thought.
Right? I think that's a really good poll, Chris. Right there. I like that. Any update on Tippmann injury? The only update I've heard is that he should be ready for week 1. So I heard, and he was practicing a little bit today. So no long-term injuries, which Kyle, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, but it was right before the Bucs game. I tweeted out like, I want 2 things. Excuse my French here.
I saw that. Yeah.
Okay. I want 2 things. I want health and I want Mekhi Becton to fucking dominate. And Becton was dominating like through the third quarter. And then I retweeted like, oh, everything's going well here so far. Like 3 seconds later, Izzy goes down. I'm like, oh my God. This is just absolutely terrible. But we've gotten good news on Izzy and on Tippmann. So, yeah, like if you want to call me negative, it's fine. But like there's film out there. So if you want, if we need to make a montage of Cole Hardman and Lazard dropping balls, which is going to get 3 likes, and we can do that. It's just no point. Let's see.
Yeah.
Kidney won't play week 1. I'm sure about that. I think The hard thing is trusting Salah with injuries updates, right? Like we heard, and we'll talk about. Oh, I guess we talk about it now, but we heard that Carl Lawson was going to be out for a day or 2 with a strained back, and now Salah is like non-committal on him playing week 1. Kyle, I'm not saying to do this, but if you could trade Carl Lawson for a receiver or a tackle, I'm all for it because I don't know how much he's going to be on the field this year anyway. And it's disappointing because Carl Lawson was.
He's definitely not going to be on your team next year.
He was a stud with the Bengals. He's not going to be here next year. There's just been way too many injuries. If you could package his, it was like $9 million because he took a pay cut or whatever it is, $10 million. I would be more than willing.
And I would like to get rid of him before I'd like to get rid of Bryce Huff, because the thing is, you might say like, oh, well, Carl Lawson's a better run defender than Bryce Huff is. And I wouldn't even doubt that, but Carl Lawson's not a good run defender. So
did you see him running? Like, I don't know if it was like a week ago or 2 where they showed a picture of him, like a video of him running in practice.
Carl Lawson.
Dude, he looked tight as you could possibly be. Like his back, it almost looked like his back was just standing straight up while he was running.
I didn't notice.
He did not look good. So I don't know what's going on with Lawson, but you got, all the leg injuries. Now you got a back injury before the season. He's been out for multiple weeks. I'm not. I don't
know who would want to trade for him with that contract and injury history. Truthfully,
well, he took a pay cut, so it's like $9 million-ish. But
okay,
let's see. Palmer's also on a relatively cheap contract. I like that poll from Chris before with Van Jefferson. Only if his dad was still here coaching up the Jets. Even though that would mean that Adam Gase would still be here, so that would really suck. Hoof, I haven't seen Hoof in a while, or Hove or whatever. He hasn't been here in a minute. But what's up? Will Renfro get cut? I don't think Renfro's going to get cut. No. I'm trying to scroll through all of this.
I don't have zero interest in Robbie Anderson. No thanks.
Do you pick up on what this means? Blewett ... Rogan. I don't know.
Is he saying you look like Joe Rogan?
I definitely don't.
Or I was wondering if he was calling me Rogan because there was somebody who said a couple weeks ago that I sound like him.
Sound like him? I don't know. I don't think you sound or look like him at all. But
I definitely don't look like him. I don't think I sound like him either.
Yeah, I don't know. This channel called Elijah Moore a future top 5 receiver, and he would no doubt lead the Jets in yards last year. It's possible y'all just evaluate receivers poorly. McCole can be a 3 and we'll be fine. Okay, like that's your argument, sure. But I would like to talk like bring you into a film room and you can tell me why he's better than Elijah Moore. Go watch Elijah Moore's Ole Miss tape, and then watch him last year. Or actually watch his first year, because I did a film review on that too. And then if you go back and watch last year, just how poorly he was used. Elijah Moore is a good player, dude. I'm not going to.
All right, everybody misses on players.
Oh yeah, for sure.
See, this is a bit of an aggressive comment, so we can be aggressive in return.
Sure, go ahead.
An eye for an eye, right? So, everybody misses on evals. Nobody's perfect. By
Howard
this
Roseman
logic,
does, Joe Douglas does.
because maybe we misassessed how good Elijah Moore was going to be as a Jet. And by the way, I still think he could have a very good year. Deshaun Watson, I think he's a good quarterback. I don't know what happened to him last year. I know he barely played, but I think I would bet on him getting back to what he was with the Texans. And if he gets to that level, I think you could see Elijah Moore blow up as a player. So, I mean, this guy's kind of saying simple eats that, Mecole's going to be a solid 3. So, Joe, maybe you should make a bet with this guy that Elijah Moore has a tremendously better season than Mecole Hardman.
I'll be willing to put a lot of money on that. He has more yards than Mecole Hardman. And with that being said, like if you think he's going to be a solid number 3, then why was he not paid to be a solid number 3? Solid number 3 does not make $5 million, $6 million with incentives in the NFL. So you may be right. Simply, it's you evaluated him higher than every single NFL GM. So you are the smart one, and all the other GMs are idiots because you value him higher. Like, what are we doing here? And yes, people miss. Harry Roseman missed. Joe Douglas missed. And it's obviously we're not those people. But with that being said, the Jets they put a second round pick into Elijah Moore, so they had a lot of faith in what he would be. So he had a strong rookie year where he ended with. Well, he actually ended injured, right? But he had like that 6 or 7 week span where he was doing really, really well. And then, past that, he was doing well in camp. And then everything happened where him and Mike LaFleur had some words. He was obviously not thrilled with how he's being used in the offense, which Kyle, we both watched the film. He was not being used correctly in the offense at all, where he was being used as a vertical threat. And there was times where he was like the 3rd or 4th read, and he was not being looked at by Zach Wilson because he could only get through a read or two. So sure, you could blame Elijah Moore, but you also have to factor in the fact that he's playing with Zach Wilson. The only thing I blame
Elijah Moore for is his mindset.
Yeah,
he had
exactly.
some of the Denzel Mims in him, like, woe is me. I'm going to play victim. I'm going to take plays off. I'm not going to try as hard because I don't like the situation I'm in.
Yes.
Versus some guys who use that as extra motivation. Like, look in the Hard Knocks episode. I'm not all comparing the players, but someone like Tanzel Smart, clearly not the most athletically gifted guy in the world, but obviously the guy plays his ass off, and you could see it. Like, just look at his preseason tape. The last 4-ish years he's been with this team, the guy's consistently shown up and played very hard in the preseason. So that's a guy who, like, regardless of his circumstances, is going to try hard. Elijah Moore, for all that positivity crap, he helped AJ Brown when AJ Brown was going through a rough time. I mean, like, well, when Elijah was going through his own rough time, he wanted to play victim. That's the only thing I blame him for. In terms of his ability, he was more than fine. I mostly blame quarterback and coaching decisions for his lack of achievement here with the Jets.
Yeah, I don't think it's proper to have like revisionist history because now he's gone. Like, we're gonna stick to what we said. I know there's plenty of people out there like, no, he sucks because he's down on the Jets. He was always terrible. Okay, like, sure. Then why were you so excited after he got drafted and after his year 1? So I'm sure if this person has a Twitter, I can go back in their Twitter and look up Elijah Moore. And when he had that 6-game stretch, he was probably busting a nut too. So like, what are we doing here? Like the revisionist history stuff. Whatever. But yeah, we suck. Thank you. So Rivka says Renfro 13. I think Rivka. I thought I saw was 9. Like for some reason there's $4 million there that the Raiders have to pay or something. I could be wrong, but okay, $13 million cap number in 13 and 14, and Hollywood is 1 year 13 as well. So okay, you might be coughing up an extra, $2.5 million, which the Jets clearly have, right now. So they're relatively similar in contract, which obviously factors in.
Rivka, question: are you one of these Jets and Giant fans? Because that would be very disappointing if that's the case.
So she covers the Giants. I don't know if she's a Giants fan as well. I'm, for my sake, we saw this. I noticed that last week as well. I'm hoping it's just because she covers the Jets and the Giants and she's not a fan of both. But we'll see. Maybe if she is, she just won't put it in the chat and act like she's not here anymore. But yeah, you can't be both. So Hollywood is so small though. We have like 10 guys that can play the slot. Do we have 10 guys who can play the slot? Well, that's my question. That's my follow-up to that because I'm not so sure. Wilson.
The way Hollywood Brown plays, he's not like one of these Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, move the chains types of guys. He's a big play type of guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a guy who's going to be running posts, deep comebacks, and go routes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Corey Davis was our wide receiver 1 before we drafted Garrett. Yeah, he was. Let's see. Harold says, I don't know if we need another wide receiver. Brees can get a fair share of targets. Conklin can line up wide out more and take
just
some
for
of the
depth reasons, you need another receiver.
Yeah, it's not about like necessarily because like okay, instead of running 11 now, yeah, we'll run more 12 and Ruckert or whatever, or we'll run more 20, 21 and Cook and Brees will be on the field at the same time. Okay, I get how to replace him for a play. How do you replace him for 65 plays, 70 plays when you have injuries throughout a season? That's the problem for me. Afram says, hi, Joe. Any interest in
No.
He dropped
that. Dude is so washed. I saw Harold already said he was washed, but
yeah.
Dude, watch Jarvis Landry early in his career. He was never like a fast guy, never a guy who was super explosive, but he was a guy who played extremely hard. You want to talk about good blockers? He was a really good blocker too. Arguably very dirty player, but this was a guy who would constantly turn his feet through contact. I mean, he almost looked like a running back with the ball in his hands. He doesn't have any of that breakaway explosion anymore.
Mm-hmm. So Andrew Garibelson, I love hindsight. John, thank you for the super chat, says, I'd wait till teams get in Mets mode. Very possible for the Raiders unless an unexpected opportunity presents itself. Band-Aid solutions for now. Yeah, okay. But, John, what if it doesn't happen? What if the Raiders don't want to trade Davante Adams? And
they don't want to trade Jacobs right now.
I don't know how they trade that contract. I have no idea how that's even going to work out. So what if you, and I'm not saying you, but let's say the Jets are of the mindset, let's just wait for the deadline because one of Evans or Adams are available. Week 8, whatever it may be, the Jets are struggling a little bit because of receiver injuries and McCole Hardman's playing and Jason Brownlee's playing. And then we're sitting there at, 3-5 and we missed the playoffs by a game because we wanted to wait for the deadline. And then what if it's not even available at that point? What if you pick up the phone and say, nope, click. Okay. So now what do we do? So I would rather address it now and let him get, 2 weeks of chemistry and getting the playbook down instead of training for a guy mid-season because I don't think Davante Adams is realistic. I don't think Evans is going to get traded. So while I love to fill it with a stud, I think filling it with a capable starting level receiver is the more realistic thing. Again, this is not Madden, right? So, and appreciate the super chat. I'm not like necessarily speaking to John, just saying in general. I just don't like, how can you guarantee somebody's going to be available at the deadline? It's just a very, very risky avenue to take, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So let's see.
And if it's a guy that hasn't, if it was Davante, which it doesn't seem likely because of the contract, you wouldn't worry about at all with like him getting right on pace with Rodgers like that. They've worked with each other so long and had so much success that it would probably just be like, hey, it's your old friend again. No problem. But if it's somebody like Renfro or Hollywood or somebody else, Van Jefferson, they haven't worked with him before. So you'd want to get it done sooner rather than later, to get some good practice reps in before the actual games start going.
If we are trying, I like Vaughn Parker. If we are trying to be good, Jason Brownlee is fine. I think he's like saying if we're just trying to be like just good. And then Harold says we have dominant players I don't know if this is responding to somebody else, but regardless of we have players to supplement the loss, it's still a player who is solid, who is now not on the team. So regardless of how we want to spin it or how he's going to be replaced, it's a player who left, who it's a hole. Like we can fill that hole with somebody else. I think that again, for a player or 2 or 3 or a game, you can replace it. But again, when you have Jason Brownlee out there as the 4 or Malik Taylor, we're going to be saying in midseason, oh shit, we really need a receiver. If we go to receiver with receiver at this point.
Can we just say this right now? Like there are some teams like Patrick Mahomes signed a 10-year contract with the Chiefs a couple of years ago. And he's going to be there for the next 10, 15 years easily, unless some crazy Andrew Luck thing happens or God forbid he takes a huge injury. So the Chiefs obviously knew that they were going to be Super Bowl contenders last year, even despite the fact that they traded away Tyreek Hill. Mm-hmm. But the Jets, probably more so than any other single team in the league, are in win now mode. Like we were talking about the Chargers being in win now mode, right? Jacksonville's in win now mode, trying to maximize Trevor Lawrence's rookie year deal before they have to give him a big mega contract. The Bills are in win now mode. All these guys, though, they're going to have a quarterback for a long time to come. The Bengals are in win now mode. I haven't even given Burrow his big deal yet. Mm-hmm. But the Jets just traded multiple premium picks for a guy who's only going to be here 2, maybe 3 years tops. They are in win now mode more than any other team in the league. So, yeah, you sign some guy right now, and sure, you can roll over cap hits into future years and things like that, but eventually you're going to have to pay the piper. It makes sense for the Jets to do this now. Like, you don't want to be, mid at a certain position. It's like, yeah, it worked for the Chiefs last year, but the Jets need to do it right now. These are the next couple of years. I mean, it's just, I don't know if I'm explaining what I'm trying to communicate.
No, I 100% understand it. Zach Reese asked, "How good is JJ doing on film?"
Let me say this. Joe. Watching Blewett's film review of the Panthers game, JJ has that very impressive play. I mean, like, he had a couple of really impressive plays in that game. Yeah, sure. But the one that really went off the highlight reels was the spin move. I think it was against Taylor Moton, if I'm not mistaken, who's been a pretty good starter in the league for a while. Knocks him back, and then he gets the sack. And Joe goes into a pretty long thing into process versus results. Like, there were certain things about it that were impressive. Like, JJ is an explosive player, but the way that he kind of set up the spin move, and it wasn't necessarily the best block either. There's a reason why Robert Saleh, when he made his comments today, like, obviously said very nice things about JJ. There's a reason why he said that, I think his ability against the run he's even better in that area. He still has a ways to go as a pass rusher. And I know he's been kind of dominant in camp and things like that. And we have no doubt that he's going to improve a pretty good amount, but I'll say this right now too. I don't think that at this point in time, and I don't think that this year, he will be a better pass rusher than Will McDonald. I will bet a lot of money saying that Will McDonald is a better pass rusher than JJ this year.
Like from efficiency standpoint. Which I completely agree with. I think JJ is definitely taking steps in the right direction. I like the way he looks in terms of like his athleticism and his movement skills. And I think he is developing more as a pass rusher. Am I one of those guys out there saying he's going to 10 sacks this year? No. But he has impressed me. That spin move, again, technically it wasn't the cleanest thing in the world. It's more of the power, like the momentum he carried into it, but it's not like he defeated the hands well or did anything.
He's a big guy who can move well for a guy 265, 265, the way he can move.
Yep. He's explosive as hell, and he's strong, and he's impressed. I'm just, I don't know. I think some people are trying to say, like, okay, he's Khalil Mack. Let's relax. He's done well, though. He's done well. He's definitely impressed me, and he's been better this year than I thought he would be going into the preseason. So kudos to him. His stock is definitely up. I just don't think he's some superstar yet. We got to see it actually happen on the field. Bigger Jets fan, but she does root for both, Kyle. Lewis says game plan doesn't change with CD out. We'll still be yes. I don't know if there's like a general statement. Like, yes, obviously we're still going to be a run first team, but having CD out hurts. Like, it still hurts regardless of game plan.
I don't think the Jets are going to be a run first team. They're going to be pretty balanced, though.
I think they'll be balanced. Yeah, sure. Sure. Wish we would have signed Odell now. Yeah, I wish we would have signed Hopkins instead of Odell. But I get it.
Literally, the dude you didn't even have to trade for him. Marvin Guns. Usually, Marvin follows up his super chat with another comment where he says something or asks a question. Thank you, Marvin. Very generous. But I haven't seen the following comment yet.
I'll make sure to look out for it. Mega Vegan says, any noteworthy veteran wide receiver? I can't think of any. Harold says, I understand what you guys are saying about another wide receiver, but I think we are better off using that cap space next year for a perimeter weapon. Like, yeah, if I can have a crystal ball and can say that everything's going to be fine this year with the receiving core, sure, but it could literally be the difference between Super Bowl and not, right? Like, having Hollywood Brown could obviously, and people are going to misconstrue that and say, oh, well, Hollywood Brown's going to win a Super Bowl. It's not what I'm saying. You might have Hollywood Brown who on that third and 5 is going to catch that slant over the middle, where Jason Brownlee's going to catch it like this, like he catches balls, and it's going to hit his chest and pop off his chest. He's not going to catch it. Like, it's just one play that makes the difference, in the playoffs. So, yeah, sure, but we're kind of going for it all this year, right? So why are we going to hold back and wait for next year?
I like a guy like Brownlee's. Apparently, he stays every day after practice, catching extra balls and working on his craft. I like that mentality, and maybe he could get a lot better. But at this point, in a Super Bowl or bust type of year, you don't want to rely on a guy like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Marvin said, why do crows pass out at high elevations, but eagles don't? Yeah, I was a little confused by that too.
I don't think it's true. I don't think that's real, to be honest.
Yeah, I have no idea. I've never heard
yeah,
that
like,
before, but I'm
just
not
as listen, as an eagle, like how he first said it, like if you have a crow on your back, instead of turning around and and fucking it up, and just flying high. If you're a badass eagle, wouldn't you just turn around and fuck it up? So it doesn't have to be pecking at your neck when you're flying high. Like just solve the solution. Just fuck it up on the ground. I don't know, but I don't think that's true. One, because crows are a lot smarter than eagles. Like crows are the smartest bird out there, at least I believe, or from the research, the little bird research I've done. So I don't think just crows are so dumb like, fuck it, I'm kind of getting lightheaded. I'm just going to chill up here and pass out and fall to the ground and die. So it's not real, but it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. Rob D, will Washington be out?
All right, by the way, Rivka said, Salah said most of his anecdotes are not true.
Yeah.
On his interview, WFAN.
Yeah, it's not true. Dude, WFAN, dude, they are, oh my God.
Oh, that Tiki Barber thing, man.
Dude,
what a joke.
Tiki Barber, Tierney. Like at this point, I get it's bad for us to like kind of trash them because they promoted us and stuff, but the shit they put out there, dude. Tiki like saying that Salah didn't want to do hard or the practice because he wasn't gonna be there and all stuff. He was clearly there. You have them, you have Tierney going out there and talking about Salah's manhood and questioning that and how much of a leader he actually is. Like they are grasping for straws. And I can't see them being around in 5-10 years. I just don't. I don't know why people listen to that shit. Even if you don't like,
I'm telling you, the only people that listen to that crap is older people that are just so used to it. Like, my dad is one example. Like a couple older guys who are like in their 50s who I work with. I mean, I don't know of any young people that listen to that, and if you do, shame on you.
Yeah, seriously, shame at this point. Like, I'm not saying like, okay, you guys have to stick with us, which if you do, obviously great. But like, even if we're not your style, you don't like the film stuff, you don't like the negativity. Ryan's out there, Richie's out there, Jake Assman's out there. You have Let's Talk Jets out there. Go follow those. Go play like a Jet. Go follow those guys. Don't the WFAN, ESPN bullshit is it's seriously sad because they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about, and they just speak in like sound bites and they try to make a bunch of bullshit stories up. It's seriously a joke. And when I'm saying that, like it's legitimate because I haven't listened to WFAN in probably 10 years, Kyle. Like legitimately have not listened to it because it's all garbage. Tierney is a fucking idiot. Tiki, idiot. I'm sorry. It's just
Tiki was a great football player, but man, he retired a little too early, man. If he played one more year, he would have probably gotten a Super Bowl. I mean, I don't see how the Giants wouldn't have won with him there.
And he came out, Kyle. Did you see this, by the way? Oh, I know where I screwed up. Oh, you know where you screwed up? What do you mean fucking lying? Like, yeah, we all know where you screwed up, you idiot. Like, that was such a dumb thing. And then, like, with that being right after the whole Tierney thing, questioning Robert Saleh's manhood as he sits, like, oh, go ahead. Fucking say the Saleh's, like what? I don't know, dude. Like, they frustrate the hell out of me, WFAN. They're a joke. But, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're on now.
Remember when Rex Ryan called out Saleh, what was it? I believe it was like early last year, and then Saleh spoke to him, and then like Rex Ryan changed his tune. Like he's like, oh man, I spoke to him and I was blown away by how good of a coach this guy is. Anyway, like let me just comment a little bit on the whole WFAN or ESPN 98.7 FM thing. You have to understand this too. And a couple of people have brought up Rogan on this podcast. Like his podcasts are about like 3-ish hours. He just had Hulk Hogan on the other day. And one of the reasons that he's been doing that for many years now is like when you do a big long form interview conversation, you can really get into so much more depth and get out stories and really kind of see what a person thinks and believes about a certain thing. Yeah. The way that talk radio was designed, it's designed in short segment sound bites type thing because people are getting in the car, they're going to a destination. You got to constantly, shift the topic and work with it in like a 3, 4, 5 minute time range because people aren't going to be in the car that long to hear the whole thing. So like the whole show is centered. It's kind of revolves around short talking points. And anyone who's listened to Dan Carlin, who has the most famous history podcast in the world, it's called Hardcore History. Dan Carlin used to be a radio show host, and he does like 5-6 hour history podcast episodes. And he says that one of the reasons he got out of the radio business was because he was tired of talking to people in these 3-4 minute segments, and everything is hyperbole and, over the top type of talking points because you got to make it really interesting so that the person, when they're in the car at that given time, they hear you. It's That's one of the reasons why you see crap like that put out there.
Yeah, and like listen, like again, it's not a thing to prompt us up. I really don't care because there are so many more YouTubers out there who deserve your listens than those guys. They're absolute trash. They don't know anything about the Jets. They know about the top 5 to 10 players, and everything else is sound bites. And they like it really annoys me. And this applies to more than necessarily just them. I just hate, like, really, really grinds my gears to see people speak passionately about something they have no idea what they're talking about. It drives me nuts, Kyle. That's why we'll say, like, hey, Hollywood Brown and Hunter Renfrow, when we speak about them, we say, to preface what we're about to say, we have to watch more. We don't really know a lot of what we're speaking about, but there's people who will say, like almost like die and willing to fist fight somebody over saying, I prefer Hunter Renfrow over Hollywood Brown because of stats. Like, that's it. Like, no background to it. So it drives me crazy. Go listen to Jake and Ryan and Tyson and all those people over to WFN, please. Even if it's not us, I beg you. Those guys deserve it. WFN, ESPN, absolutely do not. I don't give Craig Carton, I know they promote us. I don't care. I don't care at this point. They're just dreadful. And with that being said, too, since I already tweeted it out, why not? Can we stop? Can our beat stop bitching about having to do their jobs, Kyle? Like, there's people out there, dude. Brian Costello. Again, I don't care because I would say it to his face at this point. The guy does not stop bitching about having to cover games. Does not stop. Oh, can this game be over? Can you fast forward till halftime? Oh, can we just go home already? And like, and like me being like the cynical piece of shit that I am, I guess, when the Izzy injury happened, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, Brian Costello is probably up there in the box complaining about how long the carts are coming out to take Izzy off the field. Like, he just does not stop bitching. So since we're talking about WFN and ESPN, we're trashing everybody already. Can we stop bitching about having to do our jobs? There's people who wish they had your job. There's people out there in different countries who have terrible situations. There's people out there who are digging for fucking cobalt for the phones that we all hold in our hands that nobody thinks about. We're all self-righteous and all this shit. Nonetheless, you have guys like Brian Costello bitching about fucking having to cover a game and sitting there on his ass, writing down notes about a preseason game. Can we stop? Can we stop? I saw that. I quote tweeted him twice. So it's not something I wouldn't say to his face. So I'll say it now. It's just stop. Can we get something else new on New York Post, because Costello is just not it. Like, I don't know. But sorry, go ahead. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. It annoyed the shit out of me.
I didn't even know that he bitched about that. I don't think I follow the guy,
nonstop.
I don't read any of his crap.
The only reason it happens, and now I like muted it or whatever, is because of the For You. So like, I'm starting to see a lot more stuff that maybe I shouldn't see because it annoys the shit out of me. But the For You thing, I'll scroll down. I see if anybody signed, whatever it may be. And he popped up a couple of times because obviously he's a Jets reporter and I follow a lot of Jets shit. And just nonstop bitching, dude. Nonstop. Could not. He's just the most negative guy in the world. And like, Samini does I get why people don't like him, and I don't either, because like you'll have 9 out of 10 things that are positive with the Jets, and he'll highlight the one bad thing. Like, Aaron Rodgers threw for 600 yards and 6 touchdowns this game. Garrett Wilson, had 4 of those touchdowns, all this stuff. But did you see the backup tackle give up a sack? He'll do that stuff, so I get why it's annoying. But at least he does like research, and at least he interviews people. He finds things out. He breaks stuff. Like, okay. But the other guy, dude, like, my God, it really drove me crazy. And it's not something I'm supposed to say as a website owner who works with those guys, and Sabo's there and Nani is there and all that shit. But hey, listen, they're not me. And if I saw him and he had a problem with it, then okay, we could. I'm not gonna say I'm fucking fight Brian Costello, but I don't think, if you can't say it to somebody's face, and don't say it. But I'm not. It wouldn't
be much of a fight. He wouldn't
no, I'm not don't even get into that. It just really annoys me. I would legitimately like to ask him, like, dude, why? Even if that's your thought, right? Like, Kyle, because you hate days at work. I hate days at work 100%. But your job is to cover the Jets, right? Let's just start there. If you're tweeting out during the game about the Jets, who is absorbing your content? Jets fans who clearly want updates, who are clearly diehards, and they're looking for information from you. So those people are clearly very invested in the Jets. So you tweet out, can this game end and all this shit? Like, you're bitching. Do you think the fans that you're trying to appease like that shit? Like who are you appeasing with that? Why not just internalize it or talk to your buddy next to you? Why put that out there? Like, why are we thinking out loud, oh, can this game end? Like, dude, it annoyed the living shit out of me to see that stuff. So whatever, it came out. Should I say that stuff? No. If I could take it back now, would I? No. Fuck it. Who cares? Whatever. Let's see. Chaps my ass too, Joe. Jake Aspen's great. Yeah. I think I'm going on Jake's show within the next couple of weeks. So look out for that one. Carden didn't promote us. Roberts did. Okay, yeah, Roberts. Yeah, sure. I think Roberts a little better, but Carden's a joke too. It's just they're all jokes. Jay Effen is awful. I'd rather listen. Okay, yeah, I'm not trying to shit on anybody. But I'm actually going with Jay. I've had no problems with Jake or anything like that. Hunter Hughes. Do you guys get YouTube TV for Sunday Ticket? Or is that the only way you can get it now? I don't know. Craig Carter's terrible.
I don't know if it's the only way you can get it, but I did see that it's available.
Mm-hmm.
The past couple of years, I've been using YouTube TV to watch games.
By the way, I forgot who the name was, so I apologize already. But one of the guys in here was like, "Yo, I'm like 60 years old." He's like, "I don't listen to that stuff because I'm not a sheep." So he's like, "Watch speaking out about old guys." So Kyle, watch out speaking about old guys.
No, I wasn't saying that all old more. I give more credit to you. I respect you even more then because it's easier for a young person who grows up with the smartphone in their hand to, let me listen to this podcast or let me listen to this, YouTube channel. Yeah. It's for the older guys who are so used to the talk radio. I understand it's harder to get away from that. So I even have more respect for you. I wasn't saying everybody, but there are some people who just don't break those habits.
It just drives me crazy again. It's not necessarily good to shit on other, people, but when it's deserved, it's deserved. It need to be called. They need to be called out. So Kyle, we're kind of caught up in the chat for right now. YouTube TV bought out the rights to NFL Ticket. I never had NFL Ticket. I don't really. I have NFL Network. I have CBS. I have Fox. I have all
Sunday
that stuff.
Ticket is how you watch all the games. Like if you wanted to go the multiple box thing and I want to watch the Cardinals game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I usually pick a local game and then I'll have like the Red Zone on another TV. I usually have 2 TV set up and I just watch Red Zone, So with that being said, getting past a rant about, people being shitty at their jobs, let's talk about the Jets, lost to the Buccaneers in their third preseason game. We'll kind of go over it quickly, Kyle, because we already mentioned a lot of it. Studs, who are you really impressed with in this game? And again, if you want to tie it into the rest of the preseason, by all means do that. But who really stood out from?
I think you should answer this question because I don't get coaches' film for preseason games. So you can answer this question, and then I could piggyback off anything you say about any particular players.
So my studs in this game, and for the film show, I do 3 studs, 3 duds. Number 1 stud of the game, Kyle, is easily Becton, right? Like the guy absolutely dominated. The full review is not out there for free, but there's at least a clip of the back. I'm not sure how many plays it is or whatever. I didn't go back and look. I don't cut it up, but Becton, there's some of the reviews out there. He dominated, dude. Now there are some times where I want to see him try to or not try to throw guys as much as he is. Both on the second level and on the first level. So that's the only really negative. But dude, the way he was using his drag hand, the way he finished those blocks both times against the DB, I believe, and against the guy who kind of he pushed him, he kind of was already like slipping already, and he finished it. I loved Becton's game. So again, you can call me negative, but when people deserve positivity, at least you know that maybe they actually deserve it here. I gloated about Becton on the review. I was legitimately very, very impressed with not only the play, but the mindset from Becton. So easily the best player from this game. I was legitimately thrilled with how he played. Past that, my number 2 that I put on the list, I put Davis and Dean. Davis was good, but Dean really stole the show, in my opinion. 10 tackles, 9 solo, 2 of them were tackles for loss. Just really consistent in shooting downhill and breaking down at proper times. I think he's a pretty good tackler, so I was impressed. Again, there was nothing that was like extra.
That one tackle that he made with like one arm.
Yeah.
It was a really tough angle that he had to come down with, and he really had to shoot a shot or else he wasn't going to make the play. That was really impressive.
Yep. And it's not even, and obviously, they could be different. Like they could have had a different play, but you saw the 2 situations where like you see the mental processing kick in, which I was really impressed with. The 2 situations, the crack block, where the one, he takes it on and fights over it, and the other one, because he's a little bit farther away, so he has to fight through it because he knows if he tries to penetrate too hard, he's going to be overrunning the play. There's another one where he's a little bit closer to the running back, and instead of taking on the crack block, he just shoots that gap and takes out the running back's legs. So really, really liked what I saw from Dean in that game. Davis as well was just pretty consistent with tackling and taking relatively good angles. and coming, into his tackles with speed. So I like that. And then past that, obviously, the defensive line gets mentioned pretty much every week at this point. So this smart tackle for loss. You had the Quentin Jefferson play to blow up the beginning of the game. You had Jalen Holmes, who had 2 sacks. I believe one of them was unblocked, or not. Yeah, I think it was unblocked, like a chase down. But still, he had 2 sacks. I thought Solomon Thomas so far this preseason has looked better. And there's a few other guys.
Continuing on the high note from last season, he really ended the last 3-4 games of the season. He was pretty good. So
yeah.
So he might finally he might be one of these late bloomers.
Any comments on those 3 guys? And then with that, Kyle, since we've been positive for a minute here, we have to get back to negativity because we're a negative show. Michael Clemens. This is a thing that I believe we mentioned when we heard about the weight gain. I believe initially I said it. I don't like the idea of him gaining weight because him gaining weight going to the inside, like 275 versus 290 on the inside, like I get it's a difference, but you're not going to be able to bully, guards because you gain 15 pounds, where I feel like Clemens should just stay at 275, stay on the edge, and then he has a little bit more of that athleticism, because one of the problems with Clemens in his game, in my opinion, is he's more of a straight line athlete. He's powerful, but he's very rigid. He's not very flexible. He doesn't have very good movement skills. So you're adding weight and mass.
He's a guy who tries to win with power, but there's really no speed to his game, so it's like not really much speed to power.
He's not bendy. He can't bend. Stuff. No, he's not bendy. He's not flexible.
You're never going to see him really hit one of these Will McDonald spin moves. I mean, he doesn't really have he's like a cross chop type of guy. He doesn't really have like a wide array of arsenal of moves, and like
a lot of his.
He has super long arms, but you don't really see him win with like long arms too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like this is not, again, it is what it is. I think that, and I love the personality and stuff and whatever, and what he is, and I think he's legitimately that person. But I think that hypes him up to Jets fans. Like they think that his demeanor matches his play, which it does not. Kyle, I would say that he's been probably one of the more disappointing players of the preseason, because I really haven't noticed him like at all in a good way. I've noticed him more in bad ways than in good ways this preseason. And this is what I said before, or maybe after the first game, he said I want to go out there and prove that the Jets got an effing monster. Have you seen anything from him preseason, like positively? So, to me last year, a lot of his like big plays were kind of setting the edge versus tight ends or being unblocked on the backside of like a wide zone that he caught up to a guy because of effort. But I didn't really see
or a special teams play.
Yeah, like much to be impressed with. And then, obviously he's like a fan favorite, so people hype him up. But Kyle, like, can we say at this point he's probably he's our 9th or 10th best defensive lineman? Like we have to temper expectations for what this guy is going to be. I don't think he's going to do well on the inside. I'd rather just see him dominate tackles on the outside, lose a little bit of that weight, and stay more nimble. Because I don't think he's been it so far. I don't know. I don't want to. It's not necessarily the sexiest thing to do to attack people's favorite type of player, but we have to be honest about how he's been playing. He hasn't made any plays.
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is, even 15 pounds lighter, I don't know how much more nimble he's going to get. There's a reason why the guy was like a 4th-ish round pick. He's a nice guy to have on your roster. He's going to give good effort. You can trust him on special teams and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe even as he becomes a veteran, he'll become more of a leader. I could see him kind of taking on one of those leadership type roles. But, when I was writing out my 53-man roster earlier this morning, when I came across his name, I was like, man, if I could do my top 25 Jets over again, I would seriously move him down. Because the thing is I never really loved the player. Like every time I watched him last year, like,
where'd you put him, pal? Do you remember?
It was like maybe like 22, 23, something like that.
Did you?
Yeah.
I'm curious to see where I had him now. I'm going to go back in my notes.
I want to, now that you're asking me, I'm going to check just for 100% sure, but it was somewhere in the 20s. I know that.
I put Clemens as my 30th best player on the team, right below Rucker and right above Uzama.
Okay.
So it's not like I loved them last year either. But it's just, again, he's a fan favorite and all that stuff, but his play has to match.
Oh geez, I had him at 20.
Yeah.
So that was too. And my problem is that I think number one, I think I valued special teams too much.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, I think I also kind of bought into some of the crap. Like, even though my eyes aren't telling me, oh, this is like a really good player or whatever, I think I also kind of bought into some of the leadership qualities and stuff. Some of the reasons that we kind of like overhyped someone like Uzama. Like Uzama, like when I watch his tape, personally, I was never really impressed with his Cincinnati tape. I mean, when I watched your review, I came away a little bit more impressed. You sold me on him a little bit, but kind of one of these players who, just because of some other things, they get ranked up a little bit on certain people's lists.
Personality, yeah.
But you were asking me about other players that stood out in a positive way, and you were talking about Becton, and I completely agree with you. Like, think about the old Blewett's Blitz show intro and the most previous one before this one. And you were talking about, there's the line where you say, hey, listen, if Becton improves his technique and stays healthy, he's a Hall of Famer. And when you go out and you watch a game like that, granted, the guy's playing against backups. I don't know what was it, number 48, the guy who he planted and then buried after that. I have no clue who that player is. But I mean, number one, it's the mindset. Like, Mekhi Becton does play hard. I mean, like, and just the mentality right here. Like, hey, listen, this is a preseason game, and this guy's going literally whistle to whistle, burying guys in the ground. And it's not just these impressive pass block plays that we see him too, but like there was a little bit in run action where he's, trying to throw people rather than just keeping his arms, as you said, locked in on the inside and just driving the guy back. Like, I don't know. Did you see that clip of the guy mowing his grass doing like kick slides?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So, like sometimes when you watch Mekhi Becton in his run blocking technique, you don't necessarily see like, oh, there's a guy who's keeping his hands in all the time and just staying on the guy and just driving him back. But the dude, he's still mowing guys. If you're in run blocking and you're moving a guy 5+ yards down the field, that is a huge, huge, huge win. I mean, like, this guy, he creates not just holes, but lanes for running backs to run through when he gets it right. And I mean, like, dude, on a combo or whatever. And like, you see some of his feet. I mean, like, one of the things that he struggled with as a rookie was his hand placement. But if he ever gets that in pass blocking, but if he ever gets that down, I mean, like, the guy legit has huge, huge, huge potential. And I think someone like Aaron Rodgers is a smart guy. Like, the dude is smart. Obviously, the fact that he's been so smart with the football and throw so few interceptions over his career shows that he's a smart player. Obviously, insanely talented as well. Just think about how well he talks to the media and stuff. He's hosting Jeopardy and things like that. Aaron Rodgers is a smart man, and I think he's good at like reading people and building friendships and relationships with people. And the whole thing, when I saw someone tweet out that my favorite part of one of the Hard Knocks episode was when, towards the end of the episode, I think it was the second episode, Aaron Rodgers and Mekhi Becton are kind of hugging up and, hey, let's go get lunch. And now it's supposed to be like a recurring thing. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is trying to do the best that he can be to be a leader of this team, but I don't think he would just do that with just anybody, like meet with them on a weekly basis. Like, he's a guy whose time is very valuable. A lot of people would like to sit and have lunch with him. But I think that he really realizes, okay, this is a guy I want protecting me week in, week out, giving me every last ounce of effort that he has. This is a guy who needs, and Aaron Rodgers said this in the press conference, Mekhi, he's like a big soft teddy bear inside. He wants to feel like he's included. And I think Aaron Rodgers notices how insanely talented he is and feels like if he can give him the right nurturing, that he can help him become that star. And hopefully he stays healthy too. But you saw that Hall of Fame type talent that Mekhi Becton has. So it's really, I think, mostly about health and a little bit about mentality too. Like, on the one hand, like, you were wondering, does he have some of the Elijah Moore? Oh, trade me. I'm on a whine. Oh, I'm a left tackle. Oh, big bust 77. We didn't like that type of stuff too. But then when you look at the mentality on the field, this wasn't Elijah Moore taking, half-assing routes. This was a guy who, I'm going to bury a guy in the preseason, play whistle to whistle. So it was a very good outing from him. Sorry, that was a long rant.
No, it's okay. I'm gonna do the good. I just like some of the good, and then you, if you want to throw in anything, obviously, we're kind of lightning around this just because we still talk about
lightning round.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Lightning round. There you go, pal. And then we'll
pontificating.
And then we got to do the 53-man roster too, which we'll run through relatively quickly, but it's already 7:45. So good. I put Zach Wilson in there, even though there was still some processing things, but overall still pretty good, and obviously showed his athleticism, and I'm not going to criticize him so much for not going out of bounds. Like, I get it. He's trying to prove he's a backup quarterback. You know, his last time on MetLife's turf, he was getting booed while Chris Trevler was running in the game against the Jaguars. So I get it, and I like the competitiveness in him there. But he had that bad pass to Hardman on the smoke route. He had that near interception, which was pretty bad. I put Turner and Schweitzer in here as also good, which was kind of surprising. But Schweitzer's been better than I expected in the preseason, and Turner wasn't dreadful. So relative to expectations, he was solid. Brownlee, I put in here. He had that one nice slant, but dude, he catches the ball like this. Like it's always this. And that one route where he ran up the sideline, where he had Boyle who was like trying to hit him like in that honey hole. That route was really, really bad vertically, like pretty dreadful. So while Brownlee impressed, I haven't been impressed with him really at all this preseason. I like his like shaking stuff he has after the catch, but that's about it. Good from the defensive side of the ball. I put Jimmy Moreland in there. He had 2 tackles for a loss. I thought he was solid enough. The linebacker Sam Ugovin or whatever his name was had 2 tackles for loss. Had that near play on that on the punt where he knocked the ball out, and obviously he was down, but still good effort there. And past that, I put Amos played decently. But anything else like good from the game stand out from you?
Nothing that I could think of, and it's lightning round, so we should move on.
Yeah, but really quickly, what do you think about Zach Wilson and like the competitiveness? Do you have a problem with that in this situation? Like go out, or what are your thoughts?
If he was the starter, I wouldn't like it in a preseason game, but he's not the starter, so I didn't really mind it. And I know he's trying to prove himself, and
sure.
I guess he said he thought he was going to score. So
yeah. So then the duds from the game, and then the rest of the bad. I had the number 1 dud just because of the situation he was in. Obviously with Michael Carter not being on the active roster that day, and him having a chance to really prove himself. Knight, 8 rushes, 33 yards, a drop, a fumble, not ideal. I thought Jeremy Langford was terrible this game. I thought he's been pretty bad the entire preseason. I put Mitchell and Tippett in here. And Tippett just didn't look comfortable at guard. He was on the ground a lot. His hands were late. He just didn't look comfy. And then even at center, which again, his first 2 games were really good. His first probably better than his second, but he has to fix his snapping issues. And you saw it with Hard Knocks, Kyle, like how particular Aaron Rodgers is, picking up the grass, throwing it, looking for the wind, talking about how his ball snapped back to him. And that's just rotation. We're talking about rotation now. You have Tippett, who even on that Zach Wilson run, if you go back and watch it, he catches the ball like out here. Like you can't have that. So Tippmann's got to work on his snapping, which I know it's something he didn't do a lot at Wisconsin. But I put him in there. The rest of the bad that I put was Dye, the fumble to end the game. He just doesn't look like anybody. Kuntz, who's been better than I thought in terms of blocking, he still had 2 holding penalties. This game. Irv Charles, I get he had that nice catch, which, by the way, was a bad throw by Boyle. I know a lot of people online like, oh, great throw by Boyle. Actually, it was not a good throw at all. Charles adjusted to it well, but then past that, he had that play where he didn't even look back for the ball or couldn't find it, which was bad. And then really nothing else past that. I would say another positive that I didn't mention was the fact that Gibson had that 31-yard punt return. Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Nothing. No, it's not lightning round. Like you don't have to answer questions, Kyle. You can, if you want to. There's nothing else you want.
I could talk more, but just being that it's lightning round, no. But you can move on.
No. Okay. Quick question: what do you think about the whole? And this isn't anything big because it's preseason. Do you think that Hackett should let Wilson rip it a little bit more in the red zone? Like let's stop doing screens and end arounds in the red zone, and maybe let our guy throw like a 10-yard pass. Let maybe prove himself a little bit instead of throwing 3-yard checkdowns all the time.
That would be the time to experiment it with in the preseason for sure. But at the same time, Zach Wilson is a guy who the first 2 years of his career always tried to take the big play as opposed to taking the little stuff. One of the things that you highlighted in your film reviews is like, oh, it's I think it was the Panthers game. Like they ran like a slant flat type concept, and the corners, he's going off, and there's the running backs open in the flat. Let me hit Michael Carter, and he gains 15, 20 yards. It's just little things like that where Zach Wilson wouldn't take those easier plays earlier in his career. And, he instead of taking a 3rd and 2, he's looking to convert on a 3rd and 5 or a 2nd and 5. So I don't know. Part of Hackett's thinking might be like, let's make sure that, he's getting the little things down before just to build his confidence up. I don't know. Oh, your boy, the Buffalo Jet fan.
Oh, there we go. Me and Buffalo Jet fan agree a little bit too much sometimes. So I like Buffalo Jet fan. I don't know if I mentioned his name before, but definitely go check him out as well. He says this wide
His
receiver
actual
room,
name?
What
What do
his
you mean?
actual name? What?
You said I don't know if I mentioned his name before.
When I was talking about like the content creators to go freaking
Oh,
watch
okay.
instead of WFAN
Well, you mentioned him
and bullshit.
previously.
Yeah, but this wide receiver room is Midtown behind Garrett. I don't know if it's even Midtown behind Garrett. I know the Chiefs won a Super Bowl while eating asparagus only or whatever. Once we win a ring and we could be complacent. Until then, we need a bias towards action. Yeah, it's a good point. Like when you're going for it all this year, why sit in your hands with $20 million, right? Especially when you look at the depth they have. And I said it before when we talked about it for literally almost an hour and a half. Buffalo Jeff, and I'm not sure if you weren't here, but everybody is one spot too high on the depth chart past Garrett Wilson. So it's a concern, and if you have one injury, which you're going to have at a certain point this year, you're going to have a UDFA or, a bottom of the roster type player as wide receiver 4. It's not good enough for a Super Bowl roster. And I get that Kansas City does it. But like we said before, we don't have Andy Reid. We don't have Mahomes. We don't have Kelsey, who's probably a top 3 to 5 tight end of all time on their team. So, let's load up. Like let's load up the best we possibly can with $20 million. Let's not sit on it. So I'm all for going for Hollywood Brown or for Hunter Renfrow, even though because they're not Devontae Adams, that they suck, and Jason Brown is better than them apparently. So
yeah, I don't get I think Harold, I've said this numerous times, is one of the smartest people that consistently shows up in the chat, and he said something along the lines of, and I hope I'm not misquoting him, that I just want to be very competitive for the next 3 years. And so he's worried about long-term sustainability and not going all in this year or next year. And I don't get that at all. You need to be in, there's no guarantee that Rodgers is even going to play a second year. Yeah. And there's even much less of a chance that he's going to play a third year. You need to be all in for these next 2 years. So I don't get the idea of wanting to let one of these young guys develop or whatever.
Listen, if at a certain point Max Mitchell's blocking for him while he's throwing to Jason Brownlee, he might consider 1 year thing. So we'll see. And
I really want to emphasize again, Max Mitchell was god awful. All these preseason games, god awful.
Yeah,
and I really did not like most of what I saw from him as a rookie last year. Granted, as a 4th round guy, kind of stepping in and having to play a lot early in his rookie year, he did okay relative to expectations, as you keep saying, but to act like he is good, or he really showed you that he's got tremendous ability.
Kyle, it's and I'm not even trying to shit on the people. It's not one of the 114 people in here, but the reason they thought and this is legitimately some people's thought process is the Jets won some of those games. He was starting at right tackle. That means he's okay. That's seriously how so simple some people's mindsets are, in my opinion. Just, we won with him in there, he must be good. Okay, sure. So yeah, I'm with you, Buffalo Jeff fan. We were actually texting yesterday about the receiver situation. We're pretty much in lockstep. So make sure to go check out his content. Everybody in here, killing it over there. We did a Patreon. I think we're probably done at this point with the whole Patreon thing. But maybe we'll just do a live stream or something like that soon. Buffalo Jeff fan. We'll figure it out. But Kyle, I want to get to the rest of the chat. But after we do just a little bit of talk about Hard Knocks, and then we'll get to the chat, and then we'll get to the 53-man roster prediction. Thoughts? Let's do your overall thoughts, because we haven't heard any of your thoughts since it's been out. And then we'll get maybe a little bit more specific to this episode if you have anything to say. But overall, Hard Knocks experience.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a lot better than One Jets Drive. I know that Michael had it.
Kyle, can I interrupt you though? The first 2 episodes of One Jets Drive were pretty terrible. This last one was better. This one was at least okay. I actually find myself enjoying watching this, while it's not as high quality as Hard Knocks. The last one gave you some more insight. So kudos to them for the last one. I think they stepped up their game. With that being said, Hard Knocks is undoubtedly better.
I think they've all been whatever to me, but okay, it was nice seeing Jermaine Johnson and his brother on the boat, but I don't know. That's the only thing that I can really remember from the last one, truthfully.
Yeah, I can't remember anything else either, actually. From the yeah, I don't know what else happened.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
so I know that
Brees.
So
right?
Mike.
I think Brees was in there. I think they had some Brees recovery stuff.
Well, Brees was definitely on Hard Knocks. They showed him rehabbing in Hard Knocks too. So I think I think Brees recovery was on both, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I know Michael had a tweet and say something like, "Hey, listen, man, there's no doubt that Hard Knocks is better." And I'm paraphrasing very roughly what he said, but given obviously one Jets drive has to be like, he didn't use the word bias, but they have to portray the team in a certain way. And given the constraints that they have, they do a tremendous job. And I wouldn't even disagree with that. I think the narration's good, the editing's good, all that kind of stuff is good. But, you know, I mean, like at the end of the day, like the people who are saying what is a more enjoyable show, I mean, come on, there is no comparison.
It's not. It's not comparable.
So, yeah, I mean, like Hard Knocks is it's been pretty damn entertaining. You know, people naturally, especially Jets fans, probably want to compare it to the Rex Ryan season, although that was a very long time ago and I only watched it once. I didn't rewatch it. I do want to say that I was more entertained with the Rex Ryan year, but it's also nice to have like an actual quarterback this year. And it's nice seeing like, so one of the things you and I were talking about, I believe before we started recording, was like the whole, he's not a magician. What the hell is he called? Mentalist or whatever.
Yeah.
That whole scene was pretty cool in the second episode.
Yeah.
And just seeing like all the players' reactions and stuff and like seeing how they react to the rookies performing and stuff, you kind of get to see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff of the stuff with Randall Cobb and his family and his kids was really cute.
By the way, Kyle, to interrupt you again for the 1,000th time this episode, a lot of Randall Cobb fans out there now. It's kind of weird. I don't know how that happened. You know, everybody's saying that he's just on the team to because of Rodgers now, and everybody's blowing him up. It's weird. I don't know. Yeah. I was saying that for 4 months now, but hey.
And by the way, you could see one of the reasons why Rodgers likes Cobb is he's a likable guy. Like the whole thing with like it kind of just brought me back to my playing days. Where everyone, like when you're on the sideline and whatever it is, like when you're a varsity player, you'll go to the JV games and you'll watch like the guys who practice with you but don't play in the Friday night lights, but they play in the JV games, and then you see them make like a tackle or something like that, and you get so hyped for them. And just watching like Cobb on the sideline, like he's in street clothes, and him making fun of Morstead and how he's like sprinting after every punt, like that's some funny stuff, man.
But Sal's like chewing his gum, you see the really quick blur of Morstead. That's hilarious.
Yeah, so it's been a pretty good show, and I don't know how it compares to a lot of other seasons because I haven't really watched a lot of the recent seasons, and I watched 0 of the Hard Knocks in seasons. I know they've had like 2 of those so far, the Cardinals and the Colts one year. But I thought it's been pretty good. And no? who from the show stands out to you? Obviously, Rodgers is the star of the show. Sauce is the star of the show. God, Woody Johnson, man. Like, I know the guy's trying to be like cool and hip, and I think he knows I think he knows he's corny, but it is a little cringe to watch. But I get it. Like, listen, he's trying, and for an owner to try to make connections and bonds with the players, I think the players on some level respect that. So.
Dude, there's no way that a bunch of those guys, when he broke out, probably $200,000 chain, whatever that freaking probably cost them. Like that's funny to me. Like I liked Woody Johnson. Like I'll give him credit in this episode, and in general, I think he gets probably a little bit too much hate from fans. Now, do I hate that the parking lot sucks? It's $45 for a freaking hot dog that costs him 15 cents. Yeah, that shit annoys me, but. It's never been an issue of spending. Like he's not the Wilpons. Like he's willing to spend. He just spends it in the wrong area. So I don't hate Woody Johnson like other people do. I liked him, coming in with the chain. And then he kind of like was talking about it. And to me, it's like I'm thinking like maybe like he's talking about the fans because like he wants them to buy the tickets and the merchandise and all that stuff. But like I got a little bit pumped up when he's like, hey, it's for the fans out there like waiting for you guys. Like do it for them, So I liked Woody Johnson. Obviously. Kyle put this on Twitter. Like after the first episode, I added Ed Sheeran shivers to my Spotify. Never thought that would happen, but every time I think about it now, I think about Aaron Rodgers highlights. Quentin Williams from the second episode was great as well. Dominic, like my wife, who obviously doesn't watch a lot of interviews, she's like, I really like who Q is. I was like, yeah, he's fucking awesome. Like you gotta love Q. But specifically this episode, because I kind of talked about those other ones. Obviously the Woody Johnson, the chain thing, the cat thing, obviously you saw that. At first, I didn't think it was going to hit because like there's some people who hate Eminem. There's some people who like him. So I didn't think it was going to land. Like once he kept going into it, that was obviously, entertaining, which by the way, the rest of the rookie show minus Cap, I still think kind of sucked. So I think they need to up their game. They're not going to be able to do it again. But like they said, like they sung like in sync, like a sing along, but that's kind of a comp out to me. I don't know. Like it takes a lot of, I give Cap a lot of credit because not only are you a bottom of the roster guy who's fighting for his life to make the team in front of a Sauce Gardner and Aaron Rodgers and all these guys, you have to do that. you also know it's going to be on Hard Knocks, and there's thousands of people watching that. So that's a lot
It's
harder.
probably
than it
going to be
looks like.
millions of people watching it. Like,
Yeah. So big time credit for him just being able to do that. Like that takes some balls. So good, good job by him. And then obviously good play by him in the game too. Like, catching that ball short and trucking forward for a couple of yards. I like that fight from him.
almost fumbled.
I think another good moment was the we'll get to this after. I just have a couple more things. The whole thing with Salah and his kid punching Aaron Rodgers in the face accidentally. Like,
that was great.
That was pretty funny. Like you said, with Cobb and the Morstead run thing, lecturing the receivers, like, listen, if he can't trust you, he's not going to throw you the fucking ball. And that in conjunction with, Hardman saying that, like, they have to get on the same page with, like, vertical balls and stuff like that. I don't think Rodgers is going to be a big Hardman guy. That's just my personal opinion. They hyped
You're talking about the whole thing when Cobb was like saying, hey, listen, number 8, he's going to get pissed if y'all, right now, he's being patient with y'all, but eventually he's going to get pissed. Yeah. He's going to snap it. You talking about that whole thing?
Yeah. And just in general, like, and Hardman's not the guy. He's not the most disciplined route runner. He doesn't have good hands, stuff like that. I just don't know how much he's going to love him. Past that, you had Garrett Wilson who got hyped up, and, he's talking to Braylon Edwards and Sanchez about how fucking quick he is and stuff like that. So you get hyped up about that.
By the way, there's some good editing that the show did when they had, I think it was number 45, who was like, yeah, but he don't have Devontae anymore, man. And then the show, like, right after that clip's like, he doesn't have Devontae anymore, but he does have this emerging star in Garrett Wilson. And it kind of slow-mos. It was some good editing right there. Nice setup.
So that was a good one. Brees showing up as a freak, hitting 23, and you hear all the players like, holy shit, he's fast. He doesn't look like he's moving fast, but goddamn, he's fat. He's fast. Q being called fat by Mike Evans was a good one. So overall, it's been good. Garrett Wilson's been higher. I want to see a little bit more like in depth into Sauce, a little bit more in depth into Becton. The only thing I feel like this is lacking versus some other seasons is like the in depth storylines of people. And they got into it a little bit this episode with Izzy and getting hurt and all that stuff, and his family, and like how much like we think about them as just movable pieces. Like, you got to realize, like, Izzy's sitting there on the field getting injured, and his family's sitting there in the crowd. Like, they have families as well. So I want to see a little bit more of that stuff. But overall, it's been 9 out of 10. I think it's been very, very good. The first episode where you had Lee Streiberg or whatever, like with the police sound or the police song playing in the background, he's like, I didn't want to come on a helicopter, but I thought it was more dramatic. Like, I thought it was funny. I thought it's been legitimately very good. So
yeah, I've enjoyed it too. And what's it going to be, 5 or 6 total episodes? How many total?
I think it's 5. I think we got 2 more.
Okay.
So, no skills, $10 super chat, which we appreciate. Seeing any preseason linebackers that can hold a candle to Alexander. P.S. Eagles can fly 10 times higher than crows due to special hemoglobin and lungs, etc. But otherwise, it's a Disney story. Yeah. So, and Rusty said that too. Like, they fly over mountains. They can fly the highest, which I completely understand. But I don't think a crow is just dumb enough to sit on their backs. But regardless, no skills. We really appreciate the super chat. And any preseason linebackers that can hold a candle to Alexander. What do you think, Kyle? I'm going to throw that one to you.
To Quan?
Yeah. I don't think so. I'll be realistic. I don't think so. I think Quan will be better than anybody we have on the roster right now. But
by the way, that fine that Quan got, such bullshit.
It's a good hit, dude. It's just a good hit. It's crazy how soft the league is getting. But I don't think so. But I don't think it's going to be such a big difference. Like, Quan is an okay player. I think that Sherwood could be an okay player. Like, so I don't think the drafts the drop off's going to be drastic.
You're higher on Sherwood than me.
I think it's going to be, yeah, I haven't been overly impressed in preseason either. So I'm a little bit concerned about linebacker. I think he gets to the right spot at the right time and stuff with Sherwood. I don't like the athleticism overall, like his overall athleticism profile. But yeah, I think we're going to be a downgrade from linebacker last year, which is unfortunate.
Digging another super chat from Blitz Crew with a K. $5. Thank you so much. He said, you think Devin Duvernay from Baltimore can be gotten in a trade? And if so, is he a fit for our system? That's a good question, actually. Duvernay had a big touchdown against us last year with, I believe, Bryce Hall in coverage. He's been a decently solid player in the league. He's definitely a downgrade from Corey Davis for sure, and he's not going to give you the run blocking and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know, Kyle. 200 yards in his rookie year, 272 in his second year. It's 407 in his like. I think it's okay. You're talking about receiver four type stuff. Then maybe I'm all right with it. But is it enough? I don't think that's enough. I think that's like it's addressing
Yeah,
some
you
of your depth.
lose Corey Davis, who's a guy you were expecting a lot from. You were expecting, okay, he's playing with the best quarterback of his career. He could have a career year at 28 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Could he finally eclipse the 1,000-yard mark? You're thinking like if he stays healthy, it's definitely realistic. Duvernay is not that type of guy. So I think when you lose someone like Corey Davis, you want to. My immediate reaction was I was a little sad, and my immediate reaction was to hope that everything was okay with him.
Mm-hmm.
But then my mind naturally goes to, okay, well, what's next for the Jets? And there was a part of me that was honestly thinking like, okay, well, maybe they can even upgrade at the position now. Like this is more of an incentive for them to do that. Duvernay is obviously a downgrade, so I'm personally not that interested, even though I don't think he's a rosterable player.
Yeah, I think he'd be wide receiver 4 right now, but we need a starting level receiver, and whether that be Hollywood or Renfro. And I expected 700-800 yards from Corey Davis, which is okay 2-3 numbers, and I think those guys could replicate that. While I don't think Devin Duvernay could. So no. And in terms of fit the system, I'm not going to speak on that because I don't know exactly the type of player he is and what routes he runs and how he wins and all of that stuff. So I don't want to speak out of turn, but I definitely appreciate the super chat. Now let's move through the chat really, really quickly before we get to the 53-man roster. How about Tanville Smart? He disappointed in the first game, but the last couple of games he's been showing up more. Obviously, big tackle for a loss. Kyle, I'm 58. I haven't listened to WFN or ESPN for years. Just saying. So let's see.
Again, another one I respect.
Another one. Yeah. Hey, not a sheep like the other guy says. Just a bummer on Corey Davis. He's going to have a good season. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm with you. And I'm not saying like 1,000 yards or anything like that, but 750, 800 being pretty consistent. Like you look at his production with Ryan Tannehill versus what McCole Hardman and Lazard have done with Hall of Fame quarterbacks, then why does he? And if you're just a stats guy, then why does he have better stats than those guys? Like he's not bad. And especially if you're saying he's bad, but then you're propping up, Brownlee. Like it's like, okay, what are you watching? What are you watching? So let's see. Will this defense be number one?
It could be.
Could be. I think
it's so hard to predict defense. Like if you just look over the past decade plus, like one defense that was good one year and how they are. I mean, just look at the Jets last year comparative to the year before. They were one of the worst defenses in the league 2 years ago, and they were one of the better defenses last year. It's very hard to consistently stay very good at defense. The Jets didn't really lose anything, and now their offense should be better. So statistically, the defense should be even better, but it's hard to say for sure. There's other good defenses in the league. I think the Eagles have a good defense. The Niners, we know, have a good defense. So maybe. Depends. Health is so much of a factor with that question.
Yeah. Watching late, CD was a good blocking receiver, right? Do you think a replacement next man up fills that? No. That he was by far, and this is not hyperbole or anything like that. You can go back and just watch yourself if you really have to. He was by far the best blocking receiver. I know Lazard is solid. Corey Davis was legitimately very, very good blocking receiver, so they're not going to be able to replace that. That's the thing that is gone. That is the blocking. So that's undoubtedly going to hurt.
Yeah, Lazard's kind of one of these guys, like he's big and he'll get himself in the way. He's kind of willing, but he's not one of these guys who kind of comes in with like good stalk blocking technique, really, is able to kind of lift his hips up and drive and work and stay with the corner. Corey Davis had much more of that for a linebacker.
We had somebody comment or compliment us. Oh, as well as Savage Jedi Rusty Sooner. It keeps changing. It was the return. It's the return of the return. Yeah. No, Rusty's a good dude. Finally a pass rushing squad. Watch out. Yeah. And like that, in terms of defense, sorry, not to answer about the number one thing. I think that it's like interesting. You look at the talent. I think they've upgraded a little bit on the defensive line, obviously with McDonald and Al Woods and everybody. I think that they've upgraded at safety just by subtraction with Joyner and obviously Adams into a full-time role. I'm a little bit more down on linebacker than I was last year. But with all that being said, and we know this, Kyle, we've talked about this before, but it can't go unsaid about like how much the offense is going to help the defense this year as well. So I could see us even similar talented, maybe some more in some areas, some less in other areas, but just the difference of the offense legitimately catapulting us up to number 1. So let's see. I watched last year. The Lions was more entertaining. Yeah, the Lions that they got into. I didn't watch. I think I watched the first 2 or 3. Then I fell off. But they got into the Rodriguez guy, like the UDFA or the late round draft pick linebacker. There's a little bit more like grittiness into guys' stories last year. I felt like this was like Hard Knocks and one that tribe. Hard Knocks has been very, very positive too. Like there hasn't been a lot of negative spin to it. The only thing that's different is the cursing that they're allowed to show, right? So.
Does make you wonder if the whole thing with, Saleh and the whole Jets organization being forced to do it and them giving severe pushback on the whole, they didn't want to show players getting cut because they thought it was dehumanizing. It does make you wonder if they basically were able to force NFL films and the NFL to only show certain things that they wouldn't normally show. Otherwise they didn't want to do it. I'm just totally speculating here, but maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I seen a video of Lazard pancaking. I can show that video and I think I still have it. I deleted a lot of stuff off my computer though, Kyle, because I have too much shit, especially for a computer that's like 8 years old. But I can pull up that video in a second. But even with that being said, while acknowledging, I know exactly what player you're talking about. I broke it down.
He knocks out 3 Miami players in the play and does the point thing. Yes.
Yeah.
I think because of that one play though, people's opinion of Lazard's blocking is highly inflated. And I'm saying he's a pretty good blocker.
Yeah.
But I am trying to say that he's not. I could very comfortably say that Corey Davis was a better blocker.
Yeah, undoubtedly. So I think I'll pull up that play in a second when you're talking here. But I think we're done with everything but the roster. What time we got, Kyle? 8:10. Okay. So let's start. Quarterback, Kyle, 2, 3. What are we doing at quarterback?
I only have 2, Rodgers and Wilson.
Okay. With that being said, I think there is an actual chance that Boyle makes the roster, and I do not support it at all, so I'm not going to do it on my roster, even though I think there is a chance that it happens. Running back, Kyle, I'll go first. I threw in a full, and somebody asked about Bawden before. He's been playing okay in the preseason. I haven't been truly impressed, but I still think just based on how they're installing and how he's being utilized in practice and stuff like that, he's going to make the roster. So I have 5. I have Hall, Cook, Carter, Izzy, Bawden. It seems like a foregone conclusion that he's going to be gone at this point. Hopefully practice squad. I severely doubt that he's going to be on the practice squad, Kyle. I think he's going to get scooped up just based on his Bears and Vikings tape. So I don't think we're going to get lucky enough to land him on the practice squad.
Yeah, I agree, and I have all the same.
Okay, tight end. You want to go for tight end first?
Okay, I had wide receiver next. Okay, tight end. I only have 3. And
okay,
you know which 3 those are.
As do I. Conklin, Uzomah, Ruckert. Yeboah has been better this year than in previous years to me. I know he's been somewhat of a contributor on special teams as well. A lot of people are going to say, oh, well, why not Kuntz here? Kuntz, you saw visibly how upset Boyle was with him running the wrong route. Rodgers pointed out that he ran the wrong route. He had 2 holding penalties last week. He has the longest neck I've ever seen, though. But I don't think he
not longer than Mike Glennon. Or the guy or the quarterback from the Texans.
Osweiler?
No. The one they have right now, Davis Mills.
Oh, really? He's a really long neck.
Dude, look at it.
Are you sure it's longer than Kuntz? Did you see that Hard Knocks clip where he's sitting there watching?
Kuntz might be longer, but proportionate. Kuntz is also 6'7", 6'8", or whatever.
Yeah.
Davis Mills isn't quite that tall, so I guess proportionately to his body, yeah.
I did not think that after the show I'd be Googling Davis Mills' neck, but here we are. We're both at 3 for the tight ends. I just really don't see a reason to carry Kuntz. I don't know what he offers this year. Give him some time to bake on the practice squad. But Kyle, with that being said,
dude, watch Joe's film review of Kuntz, man, and how bad that dude is of tracking balls.
Yeah, he's not just because he's tall. Yeah, he is. So again, we're straight up here. We don't pull punches. His contested catchability is one of the worst I've ever seen in my life. So just because he's tall doesn't mean
a big guy who 6'7", has long arms, can jump out of the gym, but he actually sucks when it comes to catching contested balls.
Yeah, but with that being said, stock up for blocking this preseason though. I know he had 2 holds, but he's doing better than I thought he would.
He's trying, which okay. He's a practice squad candidate. Sure.
Little pat on the back from Kyle. Yeah, he's trying. That's good, So next, Kyle. I know you said you had wide receiver next after running back, but let's go to wide receiver now for you.
Okay, so wide receiver, I have 5: Hardman, Lazard, Garrett Wilson, Cobb, and number 5 is somebody who is not on the roster. I don't know who it's going to be, but they're going to get somebody else, whether they pick somebody up on waivers or they trade for somebody, but it's going to be somebody else.
So you think that's legitimately a better chance than a Gibson, a Taylor, anybody like that? Like you?
Yeah,
you
the thing is
over
okay.
50%
So
chance?
someone like Gibson can give you return ability, but he's going to give you nothing as a receiver. And I think the Jets, they have someone like Izzy who can do returns. They have Hardman who can do returns. I don't think that they're going to want to keep a guy on a roster just for his return ability when he's not really going to really give you anything else.
Okay, so let's say the trade doesn't happen. Which of those 3 would you take between Taylor, Gibson, and Brownlee?
Not Brownlee. I think his preseason games kind of showed that he's overhyped. And the one camp practice that I went to, and I texted you and I said, "Oh, Brownlee beat Sauce," and I didn't realize immediately that he yanked the shit out of Sauce's face mask to do it. Yeah, he's kind of one of these guys who I think got overhyped because of the good work ethic and, kind of one of these guys. Yeah. So it's not going to be him. I would guess it'd probably be Taylor, but I don't feel confident with that.
So I agree with you. I have 5, and I think that legitimately it's a better chance than not that someone else has added. If not, I would get Gibson just because, he's 21, 22 years old. He's shown that in 3 preseason games, he's clearly pretty explosive on special teams, which they don't really have a primary punt and kick return at this point. I don't think. And, Brownlee, I don't know if he contributes on special teams. And Willie Taylor, while, he has a connection to Rodgers and stuff, what's his upside? He's 28 years old, So if I had to keep one of them, for me, it's Xavier Gibson. Offensive line, Kyle. Do you want to go first on the offensive line? You went first on receiver.
Yeah,
I think we're the same. Do we have 10? You both have 10?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Brown, Tomlinson, McGovern, ABT, Becton. Those are your starters, right? From left to right. Now we have War. And so I have to say this as well. Kyle and I did not include injuries on this. I know that Eccles is suspended for a game and all that shit, but we're doing the Jets healthy without suspensions and everything like that. So their week 2 roster, let's say. And I'm not sure about a couple of guys. I have Carter Warren in here. I'm not sure if he's going to be on the IR for 4 weeks, 8 long-term IR, 8 weeks, whatever it may be. But a healthy Jets team, this is the roster. So Brown, Tomlinson, McGovern, ABT, Becton, Warren, Mitchell, Turner, Tittman, Schweitzer.
I believe that we have all the same.
Okay. And even though I thought Cologne was a better player than Schweitzer coming in, Schweitzer got more money, and he's been playing better so far in the preseason. That pancake that he had this game was I liked it. So, and a couple of combos, dude. His combo blocks that game were pretty nasty too. So stock up for Schweitzer for sure.
Yeah. I actually thought he was a little bit better than Cologne based on the tape that I watched. He didn't watch more than me. But
okay. That's perfectly fine. I'm not gonna stand on a pedestal for Cologne over here. I know you didn't like Cologne's overall athleticism, right?
Yeah, and also I think Schweitzer is one of these guys who's been in the league for a long time too, and I think there's a lot to be said for a guy who's consistently been on rosters. So I don't know.
And he climbs rocks. Showing hands, and he's obviously clearly pretty powerful. So defensive line, Kyle's flipping.
By the way, it was him who pissed Jermaine Johnson off in that one Hard Knocks episode, right?
Yeah.
Don't do that shit.
Yeah, stop pushing me from behind or whatever. Yeah. So defensive line, we're gonna have the same exact roster, and it's gonna frustrate me. Go to your defensive line.
Okay, so I broke it into 2 categories: interior defensive line, and then I have edge in a separate category. But in terms of guys who I labeled interior D line, I had 5 of them, and then edge rushers, I had 5 of them, so 10 total in defensive line. If you want to work it that way, 10 interior guys, I had JFM, Al Woods, Quinton Jefferson, Solomon Thomas.
Okay, and really quickly to interrupt you before you go to your DNs, what do you think about Thomas's preseason so far?
Yeah, we kind of talked about him. I thought he's been really good, actually. And I was actually really impressed with the way that he ended the last 3 or 4 games last year. So
exactly, I
think he's a guy who was never going to live up to his draft status. I mean, he was the 2nd, 3rd overall pick, but he's a guy who could probably stay in the league up until his mid 30s and whatever, because it seems like he's got a very good work ethic. He's very yoked. He's a leader, a good guy. He does a lot of work in the community and stuff. So, coaches like to have players like that. So,
Did the Niners trade a pick? Was that the draft where they traded 1 pick back and grabbed Thomas? What draft was Thomas? I forget what draft that was.
I think it was
So it's
the
similar to me.
17 draft. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Thomas was pick 3, Trubisky was pick 2. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's the case.
Okay, so then you're DNs, Kyle. We the same D tackles.
Okay. Bryce Huff, JJ, Carl Lawson, Michael Clemens, and Will McDonald.
Okay, so we are in lockstep with every single position so far, Kyle. Linebacker is one where we may differ, though. Maybe, but we're kind of on the same pace right now.
Think so.
Maybe,
I don't think
maybe we're not.
differ.
Okay, Mosley, Williams, Sherwood, Barnes, Surratt.
I don't have Surratt.
Okay, I have Surratt. I think Surratt makes it. I think that this is a spot where you could probably, if there was one player to minus, I think you could take Surratt and maybe add it to, hopefully, please God, not Boyle, but Boyle or another, maybe tight end or something like that. But I'm curious to see where you have that extra spot now, Kyle, because we're one off. So yeah, I have Surratt, and it's mainly because of the solid love. Like, he's talking about how much he freaking loves this guy. If he has any say as, guy who, made his bread with being a linebackers coach, then he's probably going to make the team. And obviously he's injured and stuff right now, and it's only been one game and injured for the next 2. I don't know what his status is for this week, but just based on the solid love, I'm going to give Surratt a spot.
I don't know. I think we might be overhyping that a little bit. And are you just taking that from the one Hard Knocks clip?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I was wondering if I don't listen to all his press conferences. I was wondering if he's a guy he's consistently hyped up in like press conferences with the media as well, but apparently not. I kind of took that as, let me give you an example. I remember one of the first game of the season, we played Newark East Side. They were horrible. And we were blowing them out by like 20 something points. And, fourth quarter, the coaches put in some like backups. And one of my buddies got in. He was like really good, still a good friend of mine to this day. He got a sack. Now, my buddy, he only started playing football like that year or the year before. He wasn't super passionate about it. He just kind of wanted to do something just to, I guess, be in shape and have friends or whatever. And he got a sack, and it was like kind of like a broken play or whatever. When he got that sack in a varsity game, the whole sideline went like crazy and was just like chanting his name and things like that. And it's like, you're extra hype. Oh yeah. Like, and I remember talking like, oh man, like this is going to go on max preps and stuff. And like colleges, we'll look at this and stuff. I don't know. I got the vibe that when Surratt had that pick and Salah was saying like, he's so good and stuff, I didn't like think like he was like taking it too serious. Like, oh man, like he's legit, like really, really good or whatever. I think he's just like, kind of like, oh, I like him and I'm rooting for him, but he's not actually that good.
I don't know, man. He's like, I love him. He's like, you guys don't know what you have in this guy. He's like, just wait. I don't know. Like, I think it went a little bit above what you're saying here. Like, it's not just like, oh, excited for a guy who doesn't make plays. Like, he was gushing about him for a couple at least seconds there. So
I think he likes the person and stuff, but I think at the end of the day, like, is he going to take him over? Is he going to take him over a guy like? Vigil? I don't know if you included Eccles on the roster. Like, I'm trying to wonder who your extra cut's going to be over someone like Eccles, who's been with the team and started games for this team. Is he going to take him over somebody like that? And I don't see it. And, for someone who might think that he might make the team over Zaire Barnes, I mean,
did you miscount? I'm genuinely curious if you miscounted now. Cause, so I have 5 linebackers. You only have 4. I'm assuming you have Mosley, Williams, Sherwood, Barnes.
Yeah.
And then you're going to say at safety.
I miscounted. I counted this like 3 times. So I don't know how I got it wrong.
And then you're gonna say, well, for that linebacker, I have Adams, Whitehead, Amos, and Dean, and Dean can fill that linebacker role if needed, right? That's
okay, so you have 7 corners?
I have 6 corners.
Okay, I have 7 corners.
Okay. Oh, really? Okay, so you have an extra corner. I'm assuming Hardy's like that special teamer type guy, and then
I mean, like I put Hardy as a corner because he's a corner, but yeah, he's a special team guy. 7 corners.
Okay, yeah. So that's the difference. You have 7 corners. I have 5 linebackers. So you have Sauce, Reed, MC2, Eccles, Hall, Hardy. And Moreland?
No, Michael Carter II, Javelin Guidry, Bryce Hall.
Oh, Guidry. Okay, yeah. So my question with this is actually, and this is maybe a question for the chat. I think Guidry is put on like IR. I don't know if is he out for the year?
I don't know. And I was reading your text earlier, and you said that like we're going to consider, like, you actually mentioned Guidry's name specifically. So I was like, oh, if he's on, even if he's not, I figured he might be on like short-term IR, if anything.
Okay. So
so Rivka said he had knee surgery. He went on IR. Okay. So I guess he's
not going to be
done then.
Mm-hmm.
What was it, like a scope, or was it like, what kind of knee injury was it?
I didn't even hear about it. So for me, I have
I didn't know
Sauce Reed, MC2, Eccles, Hall, Hardy. I think if Eccles was healthy, they would get rid of Hall because Eccles can play inside and outside. And it's not because Hall is not as good of a player. I think Hall is actually probably underrated by fans in general. He went from like being an okay starter to terrible because he got beat on a really good play by Devin Duvernay and got beat by Kyle Pitts in a preseason game or whatever it was. But if Eccles was healthy, I think he takes Hall's spot, and then they save like that $2-ish million they would save on Hall's fourth-year contract. But because he's unhealthy, I have Hall and Hardy, and I only have 6 corners there.
Okay. Well, other people are saying that he had an ACL injury, Guidry, and that he's out for the year.
Okay, so what do you do now?
I don't know if you can see the bottom of like my notes or whatever. It looks like it's too blurry. But I literally had Surratt as the one guy who I wrote to think that. So if it wasn't going to be Guidry, I'd put Surratt there.
So because of that, our 53-man rosters are exactly the same. There's absolutely not one difference.
We haven't had that before.
Great content. Just no disagreement. So Kyle, do you have some other kicker making it? You know, we have Zerline, Morstead who sprints off the field in Hennessy, right? There's no difference.
I haven't had any competitions there. Like it seems like every year we are always having kicking competitions and whatnot.
All right.
Eddie Pinheiro versus whoever. I don't know.
You know, either two great minds think alike or two dumb minds think alike. I don't know what it is, but we're one of them there. So that's surprising that we're lockstep. But you know, if Guidry was healthy, I think
part of it too, Joe, is number one, I'm influenced by. I mean, like I don't have preseason coaches film. That's number one. So I am highly influenced by what you put out there. That's number one, just to be transparent. But number two, I think it's much easier to predict the roster when your roster is really good.
Good, yeah.
As opposed to when you have like a bunch of bubble guys.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good point because I've seen people bring up like, oh, this it's going to be so hard to predict the roster this year. But it's like it's not though because we have like 53 actually good guys, so they should make the team. But yeah, the only difference we would have if Guidry was healthy is you keep Hall. I would get rid of Hall. Keep Surratt. So that's the only difference that we actually had there. But yeah, we're in lockstep there. So let's go to the.
He could be a trade candidate too. I mean, a lot of people in the offseason in this chat were saying like who are potential cut or trade candidates. Could
you look up his contract, Kyle, to give me the exact number of
Hall,
what they would save? Yeah, of Hall, because like that's part of it too. Like $2 million is it's something. So let's I'm gonna run through the chat. Let's see, Mr. Bonesy. Oh, by the way, I didn't mention, which the people who are in here, I know that I think Green Meat goes live at 8:00 too, and some other people. So people in here, I still appreciate you. Definitely the diehards. We do the JetX Fantasy League. I don't know if we're going to do 16 or 12. I'm not the commissioner anymore. I just couldn't take the role of commissioner. But I do think we are looking for two to four people maybe for the league. If you want to be in a fantasy league with a bunch of Mr. Bonesy's in it, we got Eagle in there. We got a couple, obviously, all listeners in the show. If you want to be in it, it's first come, first serve. You just got to email me, Jay Blewett. No, that's not my email, is it? It's Joe. No, that's a different one. Joe.Blewett, BLEWETT at Jets X Factor, or like DM me on Twitter or something like that, or comment below. If you want to be in it, first come, first serve. It's $25, 12 to 16 teams, pretty generic scoring and all of that stuff. So we're looking for 2 to 4 people if you guys want to jump in. And be awesome if you did, because we do like a live draft over Zoom. You don't have to actually be on the thing, but we are all in there and stuff, so it's fun. Hall so they saved $2.7 million, Kyle. Like that's not nothing. So
is that definitely so? That I thought that's how I was understanding it too, but sometimes I get confused when I read this website.
That's how I'm taking. I'm taking as if they trade him or cut him, they save $2.7 million. So it's not just him versus Surratt versus Eccles. It's he's carrying extra like $2 million than each one of those guys. So that $2 million could have, I'm not saying directly because Quan maybe wanted a starting job or whatever it might have been, but that $2 million is Quan, or a backup safety or something. So I think if Eccles was healthy, he'd be out. But at this point now, you still need good depth at corner. So let's keep going on. The Garrett Rodgers connection was so dope. I love what Zach said to Kyle Trask at the end of the show was great. What did he say to Kyle Trask at the end of the game? I honestly forget.
Oh, he was saying that he's like, you had Tom Brady those past couple of years, and he's like, with Aaron Rodgers, like, he's been helping me so much. He's got a call for every situation and things like that. So he's helping speed up my process. Something like, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but
So Kyle,
He
this
was
is something else.
basically just saying like Rodgers is helping me a ton, just the way that I'm sure Tom Brady helped you a ton.
Mhm. Now, since we talked about the roster and went through the 53-man roster, is like, what are your primary concerns with the roster going into? And we kind of know the answer to this, but like your primary concerns looking at that, like, okay, these are legitimate weaknesses that can actually hurt us during the season with this 53.
Well, I think number one for me has been the uncertainty of the health of the offensive line, right? Like, for a long time we were uncertain about Dwayne Brown, and obviously he's really old anyway, but just his health in general. We've been so concerned about Becton's health for obvious reasons. AVT is coming off a season-ending injury, right? So, and Laken Tomlinson was garbage last year. So offensive line in general, but especially the health of the offensive line. Because I think that if the offensive line RYFPs reaches its full potential, reach your full potential, it could be a pretty good one. Like definitely well above average. Now, the receiver depth is getting a little concerning now because somebody just said, and like, it's a bunch of mids after Garrett. And it's like, yeah, are they even mids? I don't know. Like, is Lazard a mid 2? Is Hardman a mid 3? And we would probably say, I don't know. No. Linebacker is a concern. We've been talking about the decline of CJ Mosley for quite some time now. And, Quincy's, I think, a little overrated. And then who's the depth there? That's a concern. And safety is a concern too. I mean, Tony Adams, while we like his potential and stuff, and the coaching staff seems to like him, he's inexperienced. Amos overhyped, and we don't have Chuck Clark anymore. So there's some definite concerns out there. But overall, the roster's a lot better. What about you?
Yeah, it's tackle depth. I'm still concerned about the tackle depth. You have to assume at a certain point that Mekhi Becton's going to go down. I still would have preferred to have a backup quarterback option that's not Zach Wilson. I don't care about the preseason hype. I'm still not ready to say, okay, he's ready to be, a good backup if we need him for a quarter, a game, 2 games, 3 games, 4 games, whatever it may be. Linebacker still concerning to me. There were some games last year, whether it be like the Lions or the Jaguars or that first Pats game where it was a lot of underneath stuff. It's a lot of screens. It's a lot of quarterbacks, running the ball and us not being able to contain it. So I'm concerned about the linebackers and them getting attacked. And then past that, I would say, safety. I have faith in Tony Adams, but he hasn't played at all this preseason, which I would like to see him play at least a little bit. So how is he going to do? And then how is the depth behind him? If he struggles, he goes down. Who is the other free safety? So I would say still kind of the same stuff, right? Free safety, linebacker, backup quarterback, tackle, which we've been talking about forever. And I know, Snoopy's saying, don't send your hands. And Bonesy's saying, come on, Snoop, does JD ever? He did, like he has. He did with the first year with Zach Wilson not getting a true backup quarterback. He did it the first year with only having Ryan Griffin and Tyler Croft as your starting tight ends for a rookie quarterback rookie quarterback. Like that's not good. So Joe Douglas is great 90% of the time, but not 100% of the time. So I can see him staying on his hands a little bit, which concerns me. And receiver at this point, obviously, right now concerns me as well, Kyle. Right? So we already mentioned that. Okay, let's keep going. I like the petting group. Okay. Well, Bonesy knows it too. Bill's neck is. I've never seen.
I don't know how you haven't seen it, Joe. I mean, like people are dunking on the poor guy so hard.
You want to just pull it up while I'm going through the chat? Pull up his neck for me.
I think even his mom like made fun of him or something like that, and like talked about like him wearing V-neck sweaters. I don't know why that's ringing a bell. Here, I'll pull it up, Joe. You can keep going through the chat.
I could see this Rivka five safeties possibly. Just because they don't have that free safety. So I could see them taking, Surratt because he's injured, taking him off the roster. Okay, Dean, obviously you could play that pseudo linebacker role. He's literally lined up in the box a couple of times this week. And then you also do keep Ashton Davis as well. But Ashton Davis, you cut him, it's $2.7 million. If they cut Davis and the second one is the real neck, right?
This one over here, that is a real photo right here.
Nah, so it's not so maybe based on height, it's longer than Kuntz's. Kuntz's, it's not as long as, or Kuntz's neck is still longer. It's still longer. I'll pull up the Twitter. Somebody put it on Twitter. I tried to screenshot it, but apparently you can't screenshot like HBO Max on your phone or whatever. It didn't let me. It just wanted to take a black screenshot. But somebody put it on Twitter. Like,
I think the reason they do that is they don't want people like stealing the episodes. Yeah,
screen recording the show.
Because Netflix is like that, Hulu's like that. If you were to buy like a YouTube movie or something like that, they have the same thing.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to look it up as I go through. But Kyle, what do you think about 5 safeties? And that's kind of the reason why. Like, okay, Dean, you're a pseudo safety, and Davis, you're actually like the backup. You're the backup. You know, free safety.
So you're saying Dean and who's the other person?
Davis making it, and then them subtracting a linebacker because Dean could be like a pseudo linebacker.
I mean, especially if somebody gets hurt in this Giants preseason game, I could see Ashton Davis. Like, I don't think there's a lot of guys who would make the team over him. Like, he's definitely in contention to make the team. Like, if there's a couple guys who are roster bubble guys who do get hurt, Ashton could find himself on this roster. And he does bring value of special teams. And I know he's had some interceptions in games or whatever, but he's not good. But I do think they like him as a person, but I wouldn't keep him over some other guys. I don't know.
I tried to find the Zach Kuntz neck picture on Twitter, and I couldn't. But I'm gonna send it to you because it's just abnormally long, especially in that scene. Like, it's like almost over exemplified. I don't know what the hell happened, but it was wild. Deidre went on IR, yeah. So you can see talent.
Yeah, I totally missed that one.
Okay. Deidre's after the year. How the hell did that happen? That sucks. I like Deidre. Saved $2.7 million. Same thing for Davis, dude. Like, that's a lot of money. You cut both those guys $5 million. You can get a decent player for $5 million. You can get McCole Hardman starting level receiver for $5 million. You know, so it's worth it. Tackle, wide receiver, linebacker. Yeah, I think I'm with Rivka there. Tackle.
We wouldn't have put wide receiver that high prior to Davis retiring, but
oh no,
how things change.
Yeah, well said. I don't know what I said, but thank you, Edward. I don't know what I said, but you appreciate it, so I appreciate you. You know what they say about long necks need 2 scars. Thanks, Dale Murphy. The question is, what are you going to do with that money this year? Yeah, $20 million. Yes, this year. Hopefully, it's to bring in freaking Hollywood Brown. The price of Hollywood Brown could be Davis. Both of Davises. You trade Corey Davis and Ashton Davis for Hollywood Brown at this point. Like, okay, cool.
By the way, Rivka, I got that from my football college coaches. They had that acronym, RYFP. They also had these other corny acronyms too. Like, they had this one called SLANT for how you should be in the classroom. Sit forward or sit in the front of the room. Lean forward in your chair. Ask questions. I don't remember what the other one stood for.
N and T. What would they be?
I don't know. Nod, maybe nod. I don't know. This is going back many years.
Yeah, no.
But the point was that don't be passive in the classroom. Be one of these people who's engaged and stuff.
Yeah, I was the exact opposite. Back corner. Trying to keep my head down and stuff like that. Watching YouTube videos.
The coaches would actually come around to see if like people were attending class and stuff, and making sure they were slanting.
No, so our schools were completely the same. Our guys were begging people to play for our team. So
I meant to ask you before when you brought up Cap. Did you guys like go away for training camp when you were in high school?
No.
Okay, so we did. We went to, obviously we played in Jersey, but we went all the way to this place called Camp Chenawanda in Pennsylvania. I forget where exactly in Pennsylvania. It was like a good 2.5 hours away from where we lived. It was pretty cool, and we had 3 days practices, and they used to make the sophomores, because freshmen didn't go away to camp. They used to make the sophomores sing during lunchtime as a form of entertainment. So, seeing some of these rookie shows kind of brings me back. Yeah, any guess what song I sung for my sophomore year?
I have no idea what you would say.
I sung this song that was in one of the Grand Theft Autos. I want to say GTA 3, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was Vice City. Called Broken Wings by Mr. Mister.
Broken Wings? Is that the song? Is that
Broken Wings
by the Broken Wings I'm thinking about? Is that the most popular Broken Wings song?
Listen to it sometime soon.
Okay. But, so now I'm gonna be Googling next and listening to Broken Wings when we're out of here. But okay, Kyle. So it's been a good flew by 2 hours and 37 minutes. Again, Fantasy League, if you guys want in, email me or shoot me a message or whatever. We were looking for like 2 to 3 people. Again, 12 to 16, standard scoring and all that stuff. Or not standard, like half. Is it half or full? I don't know. PPR. I'll be back next week with Nania, I believe. Kyle will be back in 2 weeks to preview the home opening game against the Bills. I'll have a Dalvin Cook film review out in the next week or so. It's already done, honestly. I just got to release it when it's a dead time. And then past that, football is almost back, Kyle. So any last words?
No, it was fun, and I didn't ramble on too long during the lightning portion.
Dude, you went from talking from 2 minutes on lightning round to just saying no, just 1 second answer. So we have to find a middle ground now for the lightning.
My
round.
wife says that about me a lot, that I have a tough time finding the middle ground.
Yeah. So it literally went from 2 minutes to no, go on. Yep, no, go on. Lightning round, go on. So we'll find a medium ground. Maybe it's we got to set you up to 30 seconds as a lightning round.
Hey,
30 seconds.
Joe, I don't know how you don't know the song, man. Everybody in the chat is singing the lyrics to the song.
Listen, I'm also on stream right now. It's harder to think when you're trying to process the chat and how to get off and the outro and all this stuff. With all that being said,